is 5 a.m. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. Stand by for a weather forecast as well as our first traffic report of the morning. With peace talks seemingly stalled, President Trump over the weekend again threatened to wipe out Iran. Here's ABC's Lionel Moise with more.
President Trump with a new threat to Iran, warning time is running out to reach a peace deal. Trump saying, quote, they better get moving fast or there won't be anything left of them. The president posting what appear to be AI-generated images of him pressing a red button with explosions and a mushroom cloud on the screens around him.
An investigation now underway after two military jets collided during a military air show in Idaho. The pilots ejected safely, and officials say no one on the ground was hurt. ABC's Hannah Battah has details on the aircraft involved.
The jets involved are a variant of the F-18 known as a Growler. They reportedly cost a combined $134 million. An aviation safety expert says it appears pilot error is to blame, saying rendezvousing with another airplane in formation flight is challenging, and it has to be done just right to prevent exactly this kind of thing.
A setback for a Senate Republicans' attempt to spend $1 billion for security around the new White House ballroom. ABC's Ali Pecorin on the Start Here podcast.
This has been a subject of controversy for a few weeks now, and things came to a head over the weekend when the Senate's rule keeper, the parliamentarian, said, hey guys, actually, this $1 billion, it can't be included in the bill under these special rules that let you pass this thing with only GOP support because it runs afoul of a set of rules that she is responsible for making sure get enforced.
Now let's turn to this morning's market numbers report. It's brought to you by Beacon Capital Management. They're online at beaconcm.com. For this morning's report, here's Jim Ryan.
The specter of more fighting in the Middle East drove up oil prices overnight. Brent crude, the worldwide standard, was hovering around $110 a barrel as President Trump warned Iran over the weekend that the clock is ticking. The same concerns about the war in the Gulf have stock futures lower. The Dow Jones on Friday fell 537 points and headed into the weekend below 50,000. The S&P and NASDAQ composite both stepped down from the records they posted earlier in the week. A final round of talks is scheduled for today between Samsung Electronics and the union representing 47,000 of its South Korean workers. The union is demanding the removal of a cap on performance bonuses and threatening to strike starting Thursday. Back in this country, commuters who ride the Long Island Railroad are braced for disruptions to their Monday commute after workers walked off the job during failed contract negotiations. 250,000 passengers could be affected.
Now let's take a look at your stock futures before the opening bell. The Dow is down 307, the S&P down 22 3/4, the NASDAQ, it's down 48 1/4. That is the latest news. We've got a weather report and a traffic report coming up. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News. At 5:05 a.m., all systems are go here in the local metro area. No accidents or breakdowns. However, if you're waiting on someone who's headed this way from Knoxville, for example, I-40 westbound in Cookeville, it's closed due to a crash. This between exits 286 and 280. Again, that is way out in Cookeville, 40 westbound. That section of the interstate closed due to a serious accident. We've got your traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey, good morning, everyone. It is 6 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. And I know you're saying to yourself, that doesn't sound at all like Dan Mandis. And that's because it's not. I am your friend and radio buddy, Brian Wilson, and for Dan. I wasn't really expecting to be here today, but a little Lincoln Gray, his grandson, arrived a day later than expected, so he asked for another day, and here I am. And we're happy that for Dan, in the newsroom pushing the blinky buttons, well, in the control room pushing the blinky buttons is Sam. Sam, good morning to you.
Good morning, Brian. Glad you're here.
And we got Jay Harper in the newsroom, and for Joan Jones. Good morning, Jay.
Howdy, Brian. Yeah, back, and I'll be doing morning news through Wednesday.
Okay, good. Didn't know that, but I think Dan is planning to be back tomorrow, so you'll have everybody. At least he'll be back in his rightful place. By the way, Jay, before you go, this sounds like a bad deal out there. Oh, is it west of town on 40?
Actually, it's east of town.
East of town.
In the Cookeville area, around exits 286 to 280. 40 westbound, a serious accident in Cookeville has the interstate shut down there for the time being.
All right, so be apprised. We are already off to sort of a rough start on the early morning commute today. A lot of stuff to go. Let me just tell you real quick. Going to be nearly 90 degrees today. 89 is what I've got as the projected high, and it'll be a nice dry day. But guess what? We're going to actually, if the forecast is correct, there's a pretty good chance for like the next week or more, we're going to be getting rain every day. And not today, but starting tomorrow. And it'll go Tuesday, at least through the next Tuesday. In 60, 70, 80% chance of rain on some days. Boy, that'll be nice because we sure do need it. A lot of parts of the country in a drought right now. I happen to be watching very closely what's going on back in my beloved Texas Panhandle, where I lived for a while, and my sister still lives. The little town of Canyon, it nearly burned down there. It got real close. So it's tough out there, and we're going to have hopefully a little rain to make things better in our area starting tomorrow. I want to get into what I can talk about with regard to Iran today. Start off there because, here's the thing. Generally, if something is up, you start to see a lot of aircraft movement and troop movements and ship movements. And, you start to build sort of a collage of information that suggests that, man, there sure seems to be a lot of activity. What's going on with regard to Iran after we've been in this ceasefire for so long? Well, yesterday, the president issued a pretty stern warning to the people of Iran, saying you better get serious about this, or we're just going to go back in there and take care of business. This is from FoxNews.com. President Donald Trump renewed his stern warnings for Iran to come to peace and end its nuclear weapons aspirations on Sunday. For Iran, the clock is ticking, and they better get moving fast, or there won't be anything left of them, Trump wrote in Truth Social. Time is of the essence. Trump, fresh off his trek to meet China's Xi Jinping face-to-face, is weighing restarting military action. Fox News Digital reported on Sunday. The president also had a call with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Our eyes are also open regarding Iran, Netanyahu said Sunday morning. I will speak today, as I do every few days, with our friend President Trump. I will certainly hear impressions from his trip to China and perhaps other matters as well. There are certainly many possibilities, and we are prepared for every scenario. Are we going to heat things back up with Iran? Well, I think it really depends. I mean, apparently there's one last round of negotiation. The Iranians have met with the Pakistanis, and the Pakistanis are sort of acting as go-betweens between the two countries right now. I don't know if it's been very effective, because it seems like Iran is just not getting the message. The message is, you really don't have any options here. I mean, you can stand your ground if it's important to you, but, that only means that we're going to have to go in there and just level the place, which we don't really want to do. What we would prefer to do, what the president would prefer to do, is to bring Iran into the world's nations and to be not a negative force in the world, but at least a neutral or a positive force in the world. There's no reason why they have to have a nuclear weapon unless they want to destroy Iran. And that's, Israel, and that's simply not going to happen. So, as long as we can prevent them from having a nuclear weapon, as long as we have complete superiority, I would say supremacy of the air over, the airspace over Iran, there's not much they can do except just, hunker down and take it. So why do they keep throwing out these things that are just going to be an absolute non-starter with Trump? It sounds like they want to continue it. Part of the problem is, and I'll be honest with you, it's a significant problem for the Trump administration, is it was absolutely the right thing to do to go in the opening minutes, in the opening salvo, and take advantage of an opportunity to destroy, obliterate the leadership, about 3 or 4 levels of leadership. That was the right thing to do. The downside to that is now there's a sort of a power vacuum inside Iran, and you've got all of these disparate forces that are trying to take over and become the new power inside that country. And so, you negotiate with one person, but this other person in another part of the country doesn't agree, so they lob off a missile or something, So it's like left hand, right hand. Who's in charge? We think we know who is in charge, but one way or the other, they keep coming to the table with non-starter negotiations, things that are absolutely not going to happen. So, Trump is fed up with it, and I think he's ready to say, if we can't come to some kind of deal, then I'm going to go in and make sure that we clean up a few things before we bug out of here. And I think they're going to have to bug out pretty quick. Let's just talk real quick about what it means in your life, right? You say, Iran, it's halfway around the world. What I really care about is my gas prices, and I get it. National average today, $4.51 a gallon. That's nationwide average. In Tennessee, the statewide average is $4.12 a gallon. Now, look, Trump has got some things to think about with regard to the midterm elections, getting the gas price back down. I think once we mop up our operation in Iran, and we ought to be able to do that in relatively short order, and we start to bug out, and probably what we're going to have is a mission to keep the Strait of Hormuz open. That's going to be the big mission. But I don't think we're going to be attacking Iran anymore after this next whatever happens. So, it looks like that things are heating up again. There are people in our country who are urging the president to renew action. Here's from Newsmax. Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican of South Carolina, on Sunday called on President Trump to renew U.S. military strikes on Iran, arguing that a stalled ceasefire and a closed Strait of Hormuz are strengthening Tehran while inflicting economic pain at home. I think the status quo is hurting us all, Graham told NBC News on Meet the Press. U.S.-Iran talks mediated by Pakistan have been suspended since both sides rejected, but I think there's a new offer on the table from Iran today. The longer the Strait of Hormuz is closed, the more we try to pursue a deal that never happens, the stronger Iran gets. I think he has a fairly valid point there. I mean, we have given them time to rebuild and to reorganize amidst what had to be a great deal of chaos. Of course, the other side of that coin is we've been doing the same thing. We've been wargaming and getting ready and improving our intelligence. And, I mean, we can go into Iran with impunity. Nobody can stop us. We're in, we're out, and there's not much they can do about it. So, while they have had a chance to reorganize and perhaps restock and find out what they have left and put together whatever resources they can cobble together, we have also been building up and probably are in a much stronger position now than we were in the opening days of the war against Iran. But you got people like Senator Graham who are pushing to get things done there. And it seems like Trump is at least considering that possibility. He and Netanyahu on the phone. Netanyahu, by the way, really stuck his foot into it in a way. I don't know if you heard about this, but I think it's very interesting. From FoxNews.com again, the U.S. brokered alliance designed to counter Iran in the Middle East is showing signs of strain amid tensions between Israel and the United Arab Emirates, an analyst says, as the possibility of a broader conflict with Tehran intensified on Sunday. So what happened between Israel and the UAE? Well, apparently the friction first surfaced May 13th after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office said that they had held historic breakthrough meetings with the UAE and the president there during a quote-unquote secret visit to Al Ain near the Oman border. The UAE's Minister of Foreign Affairs issued a swift denial. You see, that may have happened, and I'm pretty sure it did happen, but the UAE didn't really want him talking about it publicly. Because, internally, that doesn't go over too well for the UAE, for them to be cozying up to Israel. And they didn't, while it may be true that this thing happened, that they had these meetings and there's an understanding between those two countries, the UAE really didn't want it to get out and didn't really want it discussed widely because it would not do well internally in their country. The ministry went on to say its relations with Israel are public and were established within the framework of the well-known and publicly declared Abraham Accords. These relations are not based on secrecy or clandestine arrangements. Therefore, any this is where they kind of get, a little, snotty about it. Therefore, any claims regarding undisclosed visits or arrangements are baseless unless issued by the relevant official authorities in the UAE. In other words, unless we say it happened, it didn't happen. So I think behind the scenes, the Israelis are working overtime to mend their relationships with the UAE. And, this may have come up yesterday in the conversation between Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu. And the UAE probably has good reason to be a little upset, given this. A drone strike sparked a fire on the edge of the UAE's Seoul nuclear power plant on Sunday in what authorities called an unprovoked terrorist attack. In other words, after word got out that the UAE had been meeting secretly with Israel, something that Israel revealed, but the UAE did not want revealed, and all of a sudden now there's been a drone strike against their nuclear power plant. No reported injuries, the good news. No radiological releases, that's great news. The UAE, which has hosted air defenses and personnel from Israel, recently accused Iran of launching drone and missile attacks. And as you know, the Strait of Hormuz is a flashpoint, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This particular plant apparently was not taken down. And this is so important to the UAE, provides about a quarter of the UAE's energy. So let's recap. Things are it begin to look like they might be heating up in Iran again. I think that there is a feeling among the Trump administration that we've given the Iranians opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. Trump says he really doesn't want to go in there and knock out the bridges and knock out the infrastructure and knock out the power plants. But he's right when he says we can accomplish that in an hour. And the damage that they could do right now to Iran with their military in shambles, probably not much they can do to respond to anything the United States decides it wants to do. Well, it really could bomb them back to the Stone Ages for a very, very, very long time. We have the ability to take out power plants that will take years and years and years for them to rebuild. It's a little easier to rebuild bridges and roads and train tracks and those kinds of things. But the electrical grid, if you take out the electrical grid, it would take a long, long time. And the people in Iran would suffer. So I guess the hope is maybe we can push them up against the wall and we come to some kind of deal. But it seems as if, unless they get pretty serious and get pretty serious quick, Trump is ready to take additional action against Iran. And if you look closely, you can see the signs that our military is preparing for that possibility. 22 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock. On Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Coming up at the bottom of the hour, as you've been hearing Brian talk about, Trump is certainly upping the rhetoric with Iran. We'll have more on that. Also, Democrats outraged over another Trump administration proposal. And a Louisiana incumbent senator has been ousted, and we'll tell you why, according to many pundits. We'll have that for you at 5:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 27 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, in for Dan Mandis, who we expect will return on tomorrow, Tuesday, which I thought he's going to be here today, but, babies come when babies come. And so he's there being a grandpa to Lincoln Gray. Lincoln Gray, that's a great name. So congratulations to Dano, and he'll be back to tell you all about it tomorrow, and Joan will be back on Wednesday, apparently. So there you go. Last night, the Academy of Country Music Awards 2026 edition. I just thought I'd run through some of the names. It was a big night for Cody Johnson, Entertainer of the Year. I really like this guy. I've heard several of his songs, and I think he's really, really good. Cody Johnson, Entertainer of the Year. Female Artist of the Year was Ella Langley. Male Artist of the Year, Cody Johnson. The Album of the Year was Parker Collum's named after him. It's entitled Parker Collum. That McCollum, that's the name of the album. He won. For Album of the Year. Song of the Year, Choosing Texas. And let's see what else we got here. Single of the Year, Choosing Texas. Oh, yeah, Group of the Year, the Red Clay Strays out of Mobile, Alabama. Love that. And what is old is new again. The Duo of the Year, and I'm not making this up, Brooks and Dunn. How about them apples? So, big night. The thing I love about the Country Music Academy of Country Music Awards is, unlike a lot of the other awards show, they don't get overtly political. It seems like they sort of stay away from it, and that's a good thing. Why would you alienate half of the nation? Which is what happens on some of these other award shows. Listen, we've got a lot going on here this morning. We're going to take you to the swamp and tell you all the latest on that. And in the next half hour, you'll find out which major airline has said, we don't want no robots on our plane. It's all coming up right here on Nashville's Morning News with Dan Mandis. Brian Wilson in for Dan. Time for the news now with Jay Harper.
It's 5:30, and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories, a weather forecast, a traffic report. They're both on the way. With peace talks seemingly stalled, President Trump over the weekend again threatened to, quote, wipe out Iran. Here's ABC's Lionel Moise.
Oil prices rising overnight after a drone strike on a nuclear plant in the United Arab Emirates. Gas prices here at home now averaging around $4.50 a gallon. Republicans acknowledging little can be done to lower prices beyond reopening the Strait of Hormuz. The war and its economic toll have damaged the president's approval ratings, but his sway within the Republican Party remains strong.
The $10 billion lawsuit that the president filed for the leak of his 2019 tax returns, it'll be dropped if the U.S. government creates a fund to compensate people who allege they were victims of weaponization by the government under President Biden. And that could include the convicts for the January 6th incident. Here's ABC's Catherine Falders.
According to sources, some of the nearly 1,600 people charged in connection with the January 6th attack on the Capitol could be among those seeking damages from the fund. The top Democrat on the House Judiciary Committee calling it a political slush fund, adding it as, quote, illegal and unconstitutional.
Only Congress has the power to appropriate money. It's an utterly lawless plan.
Sources say the proposed commission would likely be under no obligation to disclose details of operating procedures.
Senator Bill Cassidy, he's not going to be running for a re-election in the fall. The Republican doctor from Louisiana who has voted to impeach President Trump for inciting that January 6th attack and has gone up against his HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy. He lost his primary. ABC's Olivia Rubin, she's been following that race.
A resounding defeat for Republican Senator Bill Cassidy. Cassidy supported much of Trump's agenda, even casting a key vote to confirm HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. But Trump seeking revenge 5 years after he voted to impeach, urging his party to reject the Louisiana senator he called disloyal.
Trump's choice, Congresswoman Julia Letlow, she's going to be facing a runoff now with State Treasurer John Fleming next month. That's the latest news. We've got traffic and weather coming up. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News. Nashville area roadways looking good this morning. No accidents or breakdowns or any real slowdowns. However, if you're waiting on someone coming from perhaps the Knoxville area headed west on I-40, out in Cookeville, I-40 westbound between exits 286 and 280, the interstate there closed due to a serious accident. It's been that way now for a few hours. We've got your traffic every 10 minutes now, every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
There you go. A little bit from the Country Music Association awards last night. The song of the year right there. Hey, listen, I'm Brian Wilson in for Dan Mandis. Dan is going to be back here tomorrow. So I am here unexpectedly today, but happy to be here. Always good to talk to you because, since I retired, I'm your friend and retired buddy, I don't really have anybody to tell all the things that are on my mind. I mean, I still have opinions, and the Bulldogs are getting real tired of hearing them. So it's good to be with you this morning on this Monday, May 18th. Get ready for a warm one. Temperature, well, I mean, I have it as 89, but Stefano says maybe 92 today.
Yeah, that's what he was showing on the forecast on Channel 4.
Wow, 92 today. 92 degrees. That'd be summer. But here's the thing that I think is perhaps going to be great news to a lot of people, given just how dry it's been for us. We've been sort of in a drought situation. We're probably going to have about 7 days of rain. I mean, the forecast starting tomorrow, it's like 60%, 75%, and it goes for a full week. I think the lowest is 50% chance of rain for the next 7 days. So, that'll be good. Then we could use it. I'm telling you, my grass is looking pretty dry out there. And I know everybody else's is as well. Let's go to the swamp, if I could, please, and tell you we got some stuff in the swamp that I think you'll find interesting. This is interesting. Marco Rubio was in an interview with NBC. Now, the headline that you may see out there is a little bit misleading, but let me tell you what I think is interesting here. He has said that if J.D. Vance decides he's going to run for the office of the presidency, he, Marco Rubio, will be the first one to endorse him, suggesting that if it comes down to it, between him and J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio for the 2028 nomination, he says he will defer to J.D. Vance. Yeah, I think J.D. Vance would make a perfectly fine president. I think Marco Rubio could make an excellent president, maybe one of the best we've ever had, because I think he's so wicked smart. But there's plenty of time out there. Here's from Breitbart.com. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said in an NBC News interview that he would be the first person to support Vice President J.D. Vance if Vance runs for president in 2028, while also saying he intends to remain focused on his current role in President Donald Trump's administration. Rubio made the comments when asked whether he would want to be the president. He said, I'm going to be in this job for the next 2.5 years. I'm going to do that job. I'm going to finish the job for this president. I'm enjoying it very much. And I think he is. I think that's true. I think we're going to make a lot of good things happen. J.D. is a very good friend of mine. If J.D. runs for president, I think he'd be a phenomenal candidate. I have said publicly, I'll say it again, I'll be the first person to sign up and support him. I think J.D. would do great. Asked whether he would want to be vice president, Rubio replied, I want to be Secretary of State, and I'll worry about the future in the future. I'm not telling you that that's what I'm aiming for. I've been doing this for a long time, so I'd like to do some other things with my life at some point, although public service is an honor to be able to be involved with it. So he's not committing to, but wouldn't that be powerful? J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio? That's a pretty powerful 1-2 punch for conservatives. And I think actually, I don't know. I could go Rubio Vance. I could go Vance Rubio. But my preference personally is, of the two, I sort of like Marco Rubio, and I have for a while. I think he's very smart, wicked smart. Maybe one of the smartest people in Washington. Also from the swamp, now the president, he's a busy man. I mean, he's trying to build a new ballroom, the big, bad, beautiful ballroom. He's trying to repair, and catching a lot of flack for it, the reflecting pool that runs between the Washington Monument and the Lincoln Memorial. People don't like the color of blue that apparently he has chosen, but one way or the other, I think it's a big improvement, and I think it's going to look great, but one way or the other, he's doing that. He wants to build a big arch. He said we need an arch to come as you come into town from Virginia. So they're trying to build a big arch over there. He's put up big flags in front of the White House on both sides of the White House. Huge, huge American flags. Now comes word that he's going to put a helipad out there on the lawn. And it may be, everything he does in this regard, he catches flack for. But in this particular case, seems like there's a pretty good reason for it. The president is about to get a brand new helicopter. I mean, these helicopters have been in development for some time now. And, the old Sikorskys, how long have they been? I think maybe dating back to the Nixon era, they've been flying these dang Sikorskys. And, even though they are meticulously maintained and they really do need to upgrade and replace those airframes. And so a new helicopter is coming, and they're saying if you don't build a helipad, then the lawn will be damaged by this more powerful helicopter that will be put into presidential service very quick. So looks like there's going to be a concrete slab out there on the west lawn of the south lawn, rather, of the White House. From the swamp also, I think this is interesting. Well, let me get this story here. Yeah, here we go. Senate parliamentarian, as long as we're talking about things that Trump is trying to build, the Senate parliamentarian has ruled against Trump's White House ballroom funding in a budget bill. Now, initially, the president said that the big, beautiful ballroom was not going to cost the taxpayers 1 red cent. But apparently, he's talking about the ballroom above ground. There is also, and this is the part of it that I think is lost on so many people, they are also building a very secure facility underneath that ballroom. So below the ground will be like the bunker, and they need to improve the bunker and to make the White House more secure and a safe place so that the president can shelter in place if he needs to shelter in place. Now, that is expensive. That should not be a part of what happens above ground. It seems to me that what he's saying is above ground, we're going to take care of it with private donations. But below ground, we think the government needs to pay for the security that we are now adding to the White House. Here we go, though. At the Senate, where they're trying to come up with this money, the Senate parliamentarian, a very powerful figure in the United States Senate, on Saturday ruled against the $1 billion provision intended to fund President Trump's White House ballroom in the budget reconciliation package. They said it wasn't germane. It had to go through the bird bath. The bird rule has to be germane. And so apparently that's not going to cut mustard there. According to Senator Jeff Merkley, Democrat of Oregon, who serves as the ranking member of the Senate Budget Committee, the guidance states that the project is complex and large in scale and it involves the coordination of many government agencies, which spans the jurisdiction of many Senate committees. So Congress is dragging its feet on money to provide the security part of the big, beautiful bill. I don't know what's going to happen there. I mean, you've got it torn down. And that was the brilliance of what Trump did. Tear it down. You can't leave it like that. You got to do something. So the money will, I think, eventually come. But I do believe that from a security standpoint, it's a very valid project. And I think they do need the big, beautiful ballroom. But don't focus so much on the ballroom. That's a part of it, and that's the pretty part of it. But underneath the guts of the White House is where they really need to shore up their security, and I think that you can't say no to that. Here's a guy that I'm coming to really admire, and I didn't admire him at all in the early going. I was very critical of Senator John Fetterman, Democrat from Pennsylvania. He was going through, he had gone through some kind of brain event, and he was having trouble communicating, and everybody thought he's really not up to the task. And he kept saying, give me a little time, and it'll get better as we go along. It's going to be okay. And it has turned out to be okay. He's gotten stronger and he's gotten better, and his ability to communicate is becoming a lot more effective than it was. And I like the guy because he doesn't have sort of this Trump derangement syndrome that no matter what Trump comes up with, he's going to, the Democrats are going to be against it. Fetterman actually stops and says, well, let's take a look at that. Does that make sense? He's an ardent supporter of Israel, thinks that the president is doing the right thing. When it comes to the ballroom, he says, why are we fighting over this? We need it. We need to do this, and we need to stop doing it. He is a voice of reason. And what he has learned, Fetterman, is that in the United States Senate, and this is something that's lost on a lot of people who study politics, in the United States Senate, in a closely divided among Republicans and Democrats, the real power is not in leadership. The real power is in the middle. That's where, Joe Manchin from West Virginia figured this out. If you're in the middle, then the left has to come to you for everything that they want, and the right has to come to you because you're a guy who sometimes will go left, sometimes go right. You can be convinced that it's going to sell okay back home. This is not hurting him in Pennsylvania, just like it didn't hurt Joe Manchin in West Virginia. So, Fetterman has learned that the power is really, you can get a lot more done, and you become a lot more valuable to both the Democrats and the Republicans if both of them can come to you from time to time to put their agenda across the goal line. He's a Democrat. I think he's thought about whether or not he should become a Republican, but he is sending out the word, and I think this is the real interesting thing, that Democrats better get their act together. From townhall.com, John Fetterman increasingly becoming a pariah within his own party. The Democrats can't stand him, and there aren't enough Republicans and independents to save him, but he doesn't care. He's gonna be his own man, but he believes that the Democrats are headed the wrong way. Who knew, says the townhall.com, this is exactly my point, that he would become the next Joe Manchin of the Senate, a Democrat who's reasonable. I admit I was wrong about Fetterman. As Democrats go, I think he's my favorite Democrat now, and a man who doesn't have that sort of knee-jerk reaction just because Trump's name is associated with something. It is 51 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Coming up at the top of the hour, we'll have the latest events concerning a very tight primary in Kentucky that features Representative Thomas Massey. And, of course, he and Mr. Trump don't often see eye to eye. Also, the judge overseeing Luigi Mangioni's murder case, he is set to issue a critical ruling today. We'll have all those stories and more coming up at 6 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 55 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair for Dan Mandis, who returns back to the airwaves here on Super Talk 99.7 tomorrow. And he was in attendance for the arrival of his new grandson, Lincoln Gray. Mama and baby doing well. Dan apparently doing okay as well. So there you go. Grandpa Dan. Want to talk a little bit about SpaceX, Elon Musk. You know, I think Elon Musk is like the Tesla of our day, the Edison of our day. Really a once-in-a-generation guy who comes along and does really, really big things. I recently acquired, for example, one of those Starlink receivers. And I got to tell you, it is impressive. I mean, it is really, really impressive. You open up the box, you plug it in, and internet anywhere, no matter where you go. He's got a big SpaceX rocket test this week, which is pretty important. Elon Musk company, according to NBC News, preparing to launch a new version of its mega rocket, a prototype of the system NASA could use to carry astronauts to the moon's surface. SpaceX will launch the updated version. The stakes for Starship and, by extension, Elon Musk rocket company have never been higher, according to this report. SpaceX is developing Starship as part of its NASA's Artemis program, racing against its rival, Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin, to build a lunar lander for NASA to use in 2028. At the same time, SpaceX is preparing to go public. Its highly anticipated IPO, which comes next month, could be the biggest of all time. So he really needs to have a good launch here. And it has come, you know, there have been 11 tests, and some of them for this particular rocket have not gone so well. It has undergone a major redesign in the last 7 months, and they are hoping that things go very well with this rocket launch that's going to take place. I think it's going to be tomorrow. So there's that. You know, Elon's doing a lot of interesting things. Of course, he builds, you know, the Teslas. He builds rockets. He's in process of building robots, and says that, you know, there'll come a time and a place where millions and millions of robots will be entering into the workforce and taking the load off humans so that they can have more time, and everybody's going to have a robot. I've always wanted a robot ever since, you know, I was a kid and I would watch the Jetsons. I wanted my Rosie the robot. Man, where is Rosie? I also wanted my flying car, and that hasn't happened yet either. But I wanted a robot. I wanted to have a robot. Are you going to have a robot? Well, if you have a robot, you're not going to be able to take it on Southwest Airlines. A 3.5-foot 3.5-foot humanoid robot scored a seat on Southwest Airlines on a flight to Dallas recently. But after that, the airline grounded the bot and said that robots are no longer going to be allowed on Southwest Airlines. The robot was named Stewie. He had his own seat and coach on a May 10th flight from Las Vegas to Dallas. Didn't want to put him in cargo, apparently. But 2 days later, Southwest updated its travel policy, and now who would ever thought we would have had these words, you know, being issued, to ban humanoid robots from the cabin and check the luggage, saying that they are a safety risk. The concern is not that the robots will go crazy and try to take over, but that they have big lithium-ion batteries, and we have been linked to fires on board aircraft, and therefore Southwest Airlines says, no robots on our plane. Good to know, huh? It is 59, almost 6 o'clock here on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in for Dan Mandis on Nashville's Morning News. It is time for the news with Jay Harper on Super Talk.
It is 6 a.m. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We'll have a full forecast and another traffic report here in just a bit. Days before the Kentucky primary, Republican Representative Thomas Massie struck a defiant tone, asserting yesterday that out-of-state billionaires are trying to, quote, buy a seat in Congress. ABC's White House bureau chief, Rick Klein, he was on the Start Here podcast.
Congressman Massey is really a classic example. He votes with Donald Trump more than 90% of the time. He's not someone who anyone would mistake for a moderate. He is someone, though, that clashed very prominently with Donald Trump over the Epstein files, among other issues. He was the co-sponsor of the bill that ultimately forced the Justice Department to release a lot more in terms of those Epstein files.
The judge overseeing Luigi Mangioni's murder case in the killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, he's set to issue a critical ruling today on what evidence and testimony prosecutors can use during the accused assassin's state trial. Here's ABC's Peter Haralambous with the story.
Judge Gregory Caro is considering Mangioni's request to prohibit prosecutors from using the evidence that police seized from Mangioni's backpack when he was apprehended 5 days after the shooting, including the alleged murder weapon and writings that prosecutors say amount to a confession. Mangioni's lawyers have argued that police violated his rights by searching that backpack without immediately obtaining a search warrant. Mangioni's state murder trial is scheduled to begin in September. Peter Haralambous, ABC News, New York.
Let's turn now to this morning's money news. For that, we hear now from Jim Ryan.
The specter of more fighting in the Middle East drove up oil prices overnight. Brent crude, the worldwide standard, was hovering around $110 a barrel as President Trump warned Iran over the weekend that the clock is ticking. The same concerns about the war in the Gulf have stock futures lower. The Dow Jones on Friday fell 537 points and headed into the weekend below 50,000. The S&P and Nasdaq Composite both stepped down from the records they posted earlier in the week. A final round of talks is scheduled for today between Samsung Electronics and the union representing 47,000 of its South Korean workers. The union is demanding the removal of a cap on performance bonuses and threatening to strike starting Thursday. Back in this country, commuters who ride the Long Island Railroad are braced for disruptions to their Monday commute after workers walked off the job during failed contract negotiations. 250,000 passengers could be affected.
That is the latest news, traffic, weather. They're next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News. At 4 minutes past 6 a.m., a couple of crashes have popped up. First of all, in Antioch, I-24 westbound, just before Harding Place. It's over to the shoulder And looking at traffic cameras, not really affecting traffic all that much. In the Bordeaux area, another crash, Buena Vista Pike at Clarksville Pike. And the crash reported earlier east of the city near Cookville, I-40 westbound. That crash has been cleared. We've got your traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Good morning, everybody. 6:06 on Super Talk 99.7, hour number 2 of Nashville's Morning News on this Monday, May 18th. Hope that you are having a good day. We're going to be warm today. I mean, it's 70 degrees already. We're headed up to a high today, according to Stefano Di Pietro. We're going to be knocking on the door of the lower 90s today. And then, just so that you know, really good news, I think, what's the most important thing that many people want to know? When is it going to rain again? Well, we're in for, according to the forecast, about 7 days with very high possibility of rain all 7 days, starting tomorrow. So rain may be on the way. I am, just in time to save your yard. Some of them are getting kind of brown out there, aren't they? Well, we got a lot to talk about here. Dan Mandis will be back here tomorrow. He wasn't really expecting to be here today, but Dan's grandson arrived a day later than anticipated, so he is taking another day with his new grandson, Lincoln Gray. What a great name that is. Lincoln Gray. Good, powerful name. Congratulations to Dan. And again, he'll be back here tomorrow. I want to talk about the midterm elections and all of this redistricting stuff that's been going on and give you my thoughts on it. Here's one for you, though. The Democrats in Virginia, they really, really thought they were going to pull a fast one and do away with all, Republican districts in the Commonwealth of Virginia. But they, unfortunately, the little problem there, the state Supreme Court said you can't do that. It's unconstitutional. And so they've been brushed back. And so it went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court decided we're not picking that up. We're not messing with that. So the High Court denied a petition on the emergency docket in a brief unsigned order, declining to elaborate on its decision and did not include any dissents. In other words, nobody put up a fuss. The Supreme Court simply said, we're not going to take this one up. And again, the sign that there were no dissents suggests that that was the unanimous feeling of the Supreme Court. The ruling marks the death knell for Democrats' hopes of installing a new gerrymander of the Commonwealth's congressional map ahead of the 26 elections, hoping to flip it to 4 of Virginia's 11 congressional seats from Republican to Democrat. Virginia Democrats filed an emergency petition with the U.S. Supreme Court on Monday, asking them to halt the Virginia Supreme Court's ruling of May 8th that found that the state legislature violated the state constitution. Virginia Constitution requires ballot measures to be voted on by state legislature in 2 stages. The bottom line is that the Supreme Court was never going to pick this up. It's not in their jurisdiction. I think that there was sort of in the Supreme Court sort of a rolling of the eyes that the Democrats from Virginia had even bothered. Why bother? Why are you bothering me with this? It was a 4-3 majority on the Virginia Supreme Court. And the highest court in the land decided that's good enough for us. We're not picking that one up. And as you know, we went through our own redistricting here in the state of Tennessee and took away that one district and sort of reconstituted it so it's more favorable to Republican candidates. That's happening everywhere. And here's how that all played out. You ready for this one? U.S. Representative Congressman Steve Cohen, Tennessee's 9th Congressional District, said he has requested that his name be taken off the ballot for the 9th Congressional District amid the state's implementation of a new congressional map. There was a press conference on Friday. Cohen, from his D.C. office, called the decision to retire from Congress by far the most difficult moment he has had as an elected official. Cohen was first elected to the House of Representatives in 2006 after serving 24 years in the Tennessee State Senate. And before that, he served as an interim Shelby County General Sessions Court judge and as a county commissioner in Shelby County. While speaking in D.C. Friday, Cohen said Tennessee's newly redrawn congressional map was drawn to run him out of office. These districts were drawn to beat me. They were drawn to defeat me. Memphis is my home, and that's what I fight for, and I want to do it again, and if I get the chance, I'll do it. But otherwise, I'll be retiring from Congress and I guess from public life. Noting how he is a plaintiff in a federal lawsuit seeking to block the state's new congressional map from taking effect, Cohen said if the courts handed him a victory and upheld the old map, he would continue to seek re-election. But I think we can now see with the Supreme Court declining to take that case up in Virginia, that probably they're going to do the same with the state of Tennessee. So Cohen says he's not going to run, says they drew it and I can't win, so he is out. Be interesting to see who actually sort of emerges there. Trump is still very much in charge, and if you get crossways with Donald Trump, he will exact his revenge, even if you are a Republican. Senator Bill Cassidy failed to finish in the two top spots in Louisiana's Republican Senate primary on Saturday. Now goes to a June 27th runoff between Representative Julia Letlow and State Treasurer John Fleming. It is a win, according to Axios, for President Trump, who backed Letlow and urged voters to oust Cassidy, whom he described as being very disloyal. Cassidy ran afoul of Trump when he voted for more to convict the president during his Senate impeachment trial over the January 6th, 2021 riot at the Capitol. Trump was acquitted, but he sought retribution against Republicans who had supported the impeachment effort. So there you go. It knocked him out. This Letlow is an attractive candidate. She's nice. Seems like she's got it together. Trump endorsed her as a U.S. House member from the northeastern part of the state in January. So there you go. We'll see what happens with regard to that. Next up, they say, is what's going to happen in Kentucky, as you heard in our newscast. Here's more on that from FoxNews.com. Representative Julia Letlow, Republican of Louisiana, the Trump-backed candidate primary challenging incumbent Bill Cassidy, tells Fox News Digital President Donald Trump's endorsement is the most powerful in the world. 5.5 years ago, he voted, she's talking about Cassidy, to convict President Donald Trump in his impeachment trial. GOP Senator was sent packing by Republicans voters as he ran for re-election. Trump-backed Representative Julia Letlow and Louisiana Treasurer John Fleming topped Cassidy, and now, as we say, go to a runoff. Somebody else who decided to stay out of it, I thought this was I was thinking it was going to be a lot of fun, but apparently she's thought better of it. Former Nashville Mayor Megan Barry was not among those who included on the Tennessee Secretary of State's list of candidates who submitted signatures to qualify in one of Tennessee's congressional districts following the redrawing by Governor Bully in the General Assembly. Berry was included on the state's agency's Tuesday list of candidates who had pulled the paperwork, obtained a petition to begin gathering the 25 valid signatures required to get on the ballot. She had begun that process, but the deadline lapsed at 12 p.m. on Friday, and she did not submit her application. As you know, Berry, this according to the Tennessee Star, Berry resigned in disgrace after admitting to using taxpayer dollars to carry out an extramarital affair with her bodyguard. And though the mayor pleaded guilty to felony theft of public funds, her record was expunged in 21. And in 2024, she did run against Mark Green and lost. So she will not be running. She took the paperwork out, thought about it, thought better of it, decided not to submit, and she will not be a candidate for Congress. We have a lot more to talk about, but we need to take a quick stop here. We got all kinds of weather and traffic to talk to you about. 16 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. Going to be a warm one today, high of 92, and abundant sunshine, rain coming tomorrow, and it looks like it's going to be with us for about a week, is the way it looks. So that's good because it's been very dry, and we could really, really use some rain right now. Gavin Newsom, as you know, they got a winner-take-all kind of situation out there to replace him as governor, and the question has been raised with Newsom. And I think this is very interesting. He says, you know, it is at least possible in a winner-take-all situation where you got Republicans and Democrats all running for the same office and the winner takes all, but it's entirely possible that the top two candidates who would be involved in a runoff would both be Republicans. It's possible. It could happen. Gavin Newsom was asked about this in California the other day, and he said, we have a plan. He didn't explain what it was, but it sounded pretty sinister.
Yeah, look, my focus has been making sure that doesn't happen, and I've exercised, not just a focus, but I've exercised through some action efforts to encourage that doesn't happen by making my case, and will continue to make my case.
What?
I do not see that scenario taking place. I've said this before, so I'll repeat it. I don't anticipate this need to be the case, but there is a break the glass scenario, and there's many people that have a deep understanding of what it would look like if Democrats were locked out, and we're going to do everything to make sure that doesn't happen.
That last part, listen to this. This is interesting.
But there is a break the glass scenario.
There is a break the glass scenario. You know, in case of emergency, break the glass, that old saying. Well, apparently they have a plan. If it looks like the two Republicans are the only ones that are going to be out there, they have a break the glass scenario. What does he mean by that? That's very interesting, isn't it? I don't know. Let me see if I can find out a little bit more. From realclearpolitics.com. Gavin Newsom said Democrats have a break-the-glass scenario for what to do if two Republicans come out of the state's jungle primary for governor and advance to the general election. During a budget press conference on Thursday, he said, "You've spoken about accountability. Do you think Democrats will hold you accountable for standing by this principled neutrality by withholding your endorsement in this not impossible scenario where two Republicans take the ticket?" You heard what he said about break the glass, but he doesn't really explain what that is. So keep an eye on that guy. There's no telling, what he's going to be up to, but apparently those Democrats out there, they're dirty tricksters. You got to watch them. As we mentioned, the next real focus for Donald Trump will be what's going on in Kentucky with Thomas Massey, somebody he does not care a great deal for. And And just a couple of things about that particular race. This from Politico. Massey's primary is the most expensive in history. Pro-Israel groups have played a huge part. The pro-Israel lobby that pumped millions into Democrat primaries this year is facing the next test of its political power on the right in ruby red Kentucky. The American Israel that's AIPAC, a Public Affairs Committee, and other pro-Israel interest groups have uncorked over $9 million in a bid to unseat Republican Representative Thomas Massey on Tuesday in a competitive primary that has shattered spending records. Prominent pro-Israel GOP donors have funneled millions more into a super PAC stood up by President Donald Trump's political operation that has spent nearly $7 million on the race. Overall ad spending has topped, are you ready for this? For a congressional seat, $32 million, making it the most expensive House primary on record according to Ad Impact. That is something. Trump wants this guy. And he's not all that happy with Lauren Boebert either right now. This from Mediaite. Trump trashes weak-minded Lauren Boebert for parading around with Thomas Massey. Thence it would be an honor to withdraw his endorsement of Boebert. President Donald Trump went off on Lauren Boebert, calling her weak-minded, a stooge, for traveling to Kentucky to campaign for Thomas Massey, whom the president skewered as being a disloyal, ungracious, and sanctimonious fool. Oh, come on, Mr. President, tell us what you really think. The president then threatened to pull his endorsement for Boebert, saying it would be an honor to do so. Trump fumed at Boebert and Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky in back-to-back posts on Truth Social. Boebert is campaigning for the worst Republican congressman in the history of our country, Thomas Massey of the great Commonwealth of Kentucky, and nobody can be that dumb, deserves to be a good primary fight. Even though I long ago endorsed Boebert, if the right person came along, it would be my honor to withdraw the endorsement and endorse a good and proper alternative. Just let me know or announce your candidacy, and I will be there for you. Oh, man. And you know what? Given what we've just seen, with Cassidy in Louisiana, if he comes out against you, it's awful hard to overcome that, because the rank and file Republicans are still very much MAGA Republicans. MAGA is in charge, and the president can have a real control over these things. Just a few things going on as we continue to approach the midterm elections. Let's call it 23 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk.
Among the things we'll get to here at 6:30, the president upping the rhetoric with Iran. Also, artificial intelligence, well, it's not being all that well received on college campuses. We'll explain. That's coming up at 6:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 6:30, and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. A full weather forecast and a traffic report are coming up. Well, with peace talks seemingly going nowhere, President Trump over the weekend, he threatened to wipe out Iran. Here's ABC's Lionel Moyes.
President Trump with a new threat to Iran, warning time is running out to reach a peace deal. Trump saying, quote, they better get moving fast or there won't be anything left of them. The president posting what appear to be AI-generated images of him pressing a red button with explosions and a mushroom cloud on the screens around him.
Members of the House Oversight Committee today, they're set to interview a former prison guard who was on duty at the Metropolitan Corrections Center in New York when convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein died back in 2019. ABC's Peter Haralambous has more.
The interview of Tova Noel, believed to be the last person to have seen Epstein before his death, comes amid renewed scrutiny of Epstein's suicide. Noel is alleged to have spent the hours ahead of Epstein's death scrolling on the internet, rather than performing the required head counts of prisoners in the unit where the disgraced sex offender was housed. Prosecutors in 2019 charged her and another prison guard with falsifying records to make it seem as if they did those required checks, and both ended up reaching a deal with prosecutors to have those charges dropped.
The mention of artificial intelligence created some tense moments recently at university commencement ceremonies. ABC's Sophie Flay is reporting on that.
For Gen Z graduates, AI anxiety may be reaching a boiling point.
It was the architects of artificial intelligence. Interesting.
The former CEO of Google was booed multiple times while discussing artificial intelligence during a commencement speech at the University of Arizona this weekend.
Artificial intelligence is the next industrial revolution.
And at this commencement speech at the University of Central Florida, a real estate executive was booed for mentioning AI.
That is the latest news. We've got weather and traffic on the way. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News. Still working on a handful of crashes here this morning. First of all, in Antioch, 24 westbound before Harding Place. That one's been there a while, but it's pushed over to the shoulder. Buena Vista Pike at Clarksville Pike. We have that crash in the Bordeaux area and still working on the wreck. 4th Avenue. This is actually South 4th Street, rather, northbound at I-24. We've got your traffic every 10 minutes, every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 37 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 on this Monday, May 18th, headed for a high today of 92 degrees. Oh, my goodness. We're going to need some serious warmth today, and then rain coming in for the rest of the week. Brian Wilson in for Dan Mandis, who is still out playing grandpa with his new grandson. He'll be back here tomorrow. As far as we know, that's the plan. Of course, I thought I was not going to be here today, but that's the way it goes. These babies come when these babies come. You know, that's the way it works. I want to go. I'm sorry, we have to do this because you know that I, among many others, believe that the truth is out there. Are we in the age of disclosure? Sam, I want you and Jay to sort of step in here and join me for this conversation because I'm going to tell you, I want to make sure that I'm not losing my perspective on this because I believe that we're about to get some pretty interesting news on this front. Is it a story in your mind, or do you have real concerns about all of this talk about UFOs as being just a bunch of hooey? What's your take on it, Sam?
There's definitely some credibility to it. As a man of science, there are things happening that cannot be explained with the laws of nature and physics that we have known as a society and a civilization. I'm not fearful of it. I'm kind of anxious for more info to drop.
Yeah. I am too. Jay, what's your take on all of this UFO stuff?
Yeah, I'm kind of where Sam is on it. Ever since I've been a little kid, in the Apollo missions and such. I can remember Buzz Aldrin and Alan Bean, others that have walked on the moon, saying, that they saw some strange things. One of them even saying it looked like the 4th of July out here with respect to strange flashing lights and things out in outer space that they really couldn't explain. I don't know. I'm as Sam said, I'm not fearful of it, but it is certainly interesting, and I'm hoping that we do learn more.
Well, I think we're on the precipice of learning whatever there is to learn. But the question is, what is it that's out there? I mean, they dropped a bunch of new videos. I think it had been about 200 files into a big database, and having been studying this issue and been fascinated by this issue, like you, Jay, since I was a kid, I've looked at everything pretty closely. I would say that a lot of the stuff that came out in the last document dump is stuff that some of it has been out there before. Some of it's been out there for a while, not all of it. Some of it raises some real questions. Some of it is just garbage. I mean, for example, if you say to the FBI, give me everything you've got on UFOs, well, you're going to get a certain number of documents that fall into a document search of some wacko who called up and filed a report but didn't leave their name. I mean, that kind of stuff is in there. But then, but buried within there is some really interesting stuff. But the folks on Capitol Hill, it seems, who are looking to get more information about this. We're talking about Tim Burchett here from Tennessee. He's been very active in this. Anna Paulina Luna out of the state of Florida is very much pushing for it. And Congressman Eric Burleson, I think it is, Eric Burleson of Missouri, have all said that there is stuff out there that absolutely will convince you that we are not alone. Now, will they be dropping some of that into? There's been a big tussle going on behind the scenes, a big fight. These three members of Congress have demanded some 46 videos from the government files that they say they have seen in a classified setting, and they want them declassified. And apparently about 40 of them are going to be declassified, and an agreement has been reached to release them in the days ahead. So it is very, very interesting. And then on top of all that, there's a lot of reporting. I want to tell you guys this morning that over the weekend, or after he got back from China, that Trump got a more definitive briefing on this. And of course, he stirred the pot up by going to Truth Social and dropping one of those AI photos of him escorting an alien in what looks like an airbase somewhere. So, people are wondering, what is he trying to say by doing that? And then you got this Congressman Burleson who's out there saying, we really need to get the answers to all this. Go ahead.
I was going to say, did you see Burchett on Joe Rogan at all?
Well, there's so many interviews out there. Which one?
He was just on there last week, I think on Wednesdays when it got uploaded. So I watched part of it over the weekend. One of the things that Burchett pointed out that I guess people are just absent-minded of is that when we've had these crashes, when we've had things fall from space that we've recovered, the government has turned it over to some of these private military contractors. So these Congress people can't access everything they want to access. They can't FOIA this stuff because it's under a private party as opposed to a government agency.
To that very point, here we go. Lawmakers want feds to probe research contractors for physical evidence of UFOs. From justthenews.com. In the hunt for unidentified aircraft, one lawmaker is zeroing in on federally funded research institutions for evidence of the perplexing technology that has captivated UFO enthusiasts and the general public alike. The craft have been reported, but where do they actually exist? If you believe, as I do, I mean, if you saw that documentary, Age of Disclosure, and if you haven't seen it, I recommend it to you. It's very well done. Have you seen it? Because it's really remarkable, Sam.
I have not. My obsession in this realm has been the Skinwalker Ranch experiment.
Yeah, and that's pretty interesting stuff as well. Go watch Age of Disclosure, because in this documentary, it's not a bunch of farmers who saw something in their field, or some guy was in a swamp and he saw an alien. It's none of that. These are high-level admiral, senators, key players, people who were actually involved in some of the reverse engineering, people who claim that they have seen non-human entities, biologics, and they're not cranks. They're really not. They're really, they seem to be buttoned up, very credible. You got the all the testimony from the pilots that they have seen something that they can't explain. And now comes word that apparently the problem is that you have these FFRDCs is what it's called, federally funded research and development centers, quasi-government entities that carry out research projects for the federal government on a contract basis. This is what Burleson is saying. Where the investigation is leading me right now is what are called FFRDCs. He specifically floated organizations like, are you ready? RAND Corporation, the MITRE Group, Aerospace Corporation, and then subcontract a lot, or they work with contracts in a lot of our private companies like Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, and Raytheon. Those are the names you hear most often as being in charge of whatever crashes we had retrieved. They're in charge of apparently trying to reverse engineer that technology. I personally believe that when we find out everything that there is to find out, and we probably won't get it all because there are very valid reasons to keep some of this secret. And I'll get into that in just a moment. Right now, quick stop for traffic and weather at 46 minutes past the hour. All right, our forecast calls for a high today of 92 and rain coming starting tomorrow. We're talking about whether or not the truth is out there. You know, is it out there? That's a good question. Somebody who has been rather skeptical of all of this in the past is astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson. Is that right? Did I get his name right? I think that's right, yeah. You've seen the guy around. He has been very skeptical about it, but now he's a little more open to the idea.
Given the testimonies that we've heard given, that we heard delivered in front of Congress in 2023, 2024, 2025, from whistleblowers and insiders and military officials, ex-military, ex-intelligence officers, it's it's no longer just the farmer in the back 40, right, commenting on what hovered over their crops, or the revelers coming out of the bar at 2 a.m. So these are people of high rank and all sincere. And so not only have they sort of said that they've got alien body parts and reverse engineered technologies, that's sort of consistent with the files that were released. So I'm fine. If that's where we are, all I'm going to ask is, where's the alien? Just bring out the alien. Then we would all transition from asking one another, do you believe in aliens, to, well, yeah, of course, the alien's there.
What do you think? Are they here, or have they been among us?
Whatever are the claims, I'm saying, let's assume they're all true. But just start with that assumption. If it's all true, they ought to be able to bring out the alien.
Got it.
And that
Evidence.
hasn't happened yet. So I'm just sitting on the couch waiting patiently for that.
And on that point, there is said to be one image, maybe it may be a video. I think it's a video that is said to be crystal clear, not taken. Although some of our most sensitive, apparently some of the best pictures were taken by very sensitive and top secret observation platforms like, satellites in space. We don't want our allies to know, our opponents in the world stage, to know how good our technology is, what is the level of our ability to look down on things and to monitor things around the world. We know that's a big secret, and some of the best information that we have and the best pictures apparently come from top secret platforms, and so they're probably not likely to reveal that. And then the other thing is, I think that's one of the problems is, and why they're so hinky about releasing some of this information is, if indeed we've been reverse engineering UFOs, and who can believe we're even talking about this stuff, but if we didn't reverse engineer them and we have developed certain technologies as a result of that, well, the Russians are doing that, the Chinese are doing it as well, and we don't want them to know how far we have gotten. I don't know where we are, but I believe that we are now going to see in very quick order, there is one image that is said to be taken with a 4K camera from a B-52. They're flying along, minding their own business in a B-52, and a flying saucer pulls up and paces them for quite a while. And they got pictures of it that are supposed to be crystal clear, so clear that apparently you can see the alien pilot. Now, if that gets released, that is what Tim Burchett has called the holy crap moment. That's where everybody's going to go, well, there it is, ladies and gentlemen. You can't deny that. There are apparently been some other videos that are about to be released that they went to, these three lawmakers went to a secure facility at the CIA. They reviewed about 40 videos. Tim Burchett has said that in one of the cases that it was such a remarkable thing that there were gasps in the room when the video played out. Even among people who sort of knew what was coming, it was shocking what they had seen. So I think we're in the realm of about to learn some very, very interesting stuff. When is it going to fall? I don't know. They said 30 days maybe. We have one document dump. Nothing else has been added to the file. But I will tell you something else that's happening is other countries around the world, notably Japan, have said, we're going to release all our information on UFOs or UAPs. Other countries are now doing this as well, and it seems like the floodgates are about to open. One other thing to keep an eye on, and just something to stick in the back of your mind and remember when the time comes. There's a lot of talk about a project called Rubik's Cube. Nobody dares to go and explain what it is, except they said, if you want to know what that is, then get me immunity and I'll tell you, as some of the whistleblowers have said, but they're afraid to disclose it. Whatever it is, remember Operation Rubik's Cube, because apparently that is something that is going to be extremely interesting when we finally get the details, if we ever get the details of that. We're not going to get all of it. Certainly not. Some of this, I will say, I think is out there that has been visual, that has been seen for some time. I think is stuff that we have reverse engineered. I think it belongs to us, but not all of it. And there certainly are a lot of questions as people want to know, what is the truth? And is it out there? Weird times we live in. 52 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Here's news I know we all want to hear. I'm being sarcastic, of course. Oil prices continue to rise. Oh, boy. Also, a weekend of terror in the Texas Capitol. We'll have those stories and more coming up at 7 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 58 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm just sitting here talking with Sam during the commercial break about all this weird stuff that's going on. It is really, Sam, quite frankly, it's hard to imagine that we are in a place and time where we're apparently in the next few days going to learn things that are going to be pretty eye-opening if you believe Burchett. I mean, I believe Tim Burchett. I believe he's a straight shooter.
Yeah, I can't think of a more genuine politician in this country that you could be trustworthy of.
And he says, I have seen these videos that are disturbing to me. He said, if you had seen these videos, this is a quote from Burchett, you would have a hard time sleeping at night. It is really out there stuff. And what are they? Who knows? I mean, there are all kinds of talk about are they from another planet? Have they been here forever? Do they live in the oceans? There's just all these wild theories going on. Some people, Anna Paulina Luna, her congresswoman from the state of Florida, says she believes that they're interdimensional beings, whatever that means. So get ready, because in the days ahead, we're going to be learning some stuff. And if the guidance that we're being given by people who are on the inside, it could be pretty interesting stuff. 7 o'clock now, time for the news with Jay Harper.
It is 7 a.m. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories, a weather forecast, and a traffic reporter coming up. Oil prices pushed higher overnight, along with tensions in the Middle East. Iranian drones, they struck a nuclear plant in the UAE. And President Trump, he issued a stark warning. Here's ABC's Rebecca Jarvis.
Any escalation in the region, and you see it immediately reflected in oil prices. And this morning, you're seeing oil prices climbing after President Trump warned in a post for Iran, the clock is ticking and they better get moving fast. That was his quote, his words calling into question the fragile ceasefire with Iran, with the critical question of what happens to that Strait of Hormuz still unanswered.
A weekend of terror has ended in the Texas capital after authorities apprehended the third and final suspect in a 48-hour shooting spree. ABC's Jim Ryan was in Austin when it happened.
The violence was centered in South Austin, but police across the city were put on alert.
These individuals are armed and dangerous. They shot 4 people already today.
Audio from Broadcastify, 4 people were wounded, 1 critically, yet at least a dozen shootings between Saturday and Sunday.
A motive? I don't know what a motive is. I don't know what motive would drive anybody to drive around senselessly in this city and in multiple parts of the city shooting.
Austin Police Chief Lisa Davis says the youngest suspect is 15.
Chaos at Swatch stores around the world. Apparently shoppers just kind of went crazy trying to get their hands on a rare watch.
In New York, officers using pepper spray to disperse this unruly crowd. In Milan, Italy, this fight breaking out. The unruly crowds forcing Swatch to temporarily close several of its locations over the weekend. The company's saying to ensure the safety of both our customers and our staff in Swatch stores, we kindly ask you not to rush to our stores in large numbers to acquire this product.
That's ABC's Hannah Battah reporting. Back here in Nashville, Metropolitan Nashville Police is investigating a shooting in Antioch that left 2 people dead and another in the hospital. The shooting happened near Mountain High Drive and Cane Ridge Road. Police say 2 groups of people exchanged gunfire late last night. 1 person from each group died. Another was taken to Vanderbilt with non-life-threatening injuries. Police are still trying to sort all this out. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather are next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News. Well, no real accidents or breakdowns currently, but apparently an animal has been struck. This is on I-40 eastbound just before Charlotte Pike. This in the center lane, and it's kind of disrupting traffic. Not any word on what kind of animal, but nonetheless, just be aware. This is near exit 201. Again, I-40 eastbound. We're seeing the normal slowdowns as usual in the normal spots. That would be the 2465 merge there coming from the north around Trinity Lane, as well as 24 westbound in Smyrna around Old Hickory Boulevard. And as you approach Harding Place, we've got slowdowns there as well. But hey, what else is new, right? We've got your traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 7 o'clock, 7:06 to be exact, on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair for Dan Mandis, who returns tomorrow. Well, his grandson was a day late getting here, so, he's taking another day. He'll be back here with us tomorrow, and everyone will be in their rightful place, and I can return to relative obscurity here in bucolic Watertown. I want to talk, if I could, at the top of this hour about what's happening with Iran. We've been in a ceasefire situation with Iran for quite a while now, and is it going well? I mean, are we getting closer to having some kind of deal? Apparently, the Iranians have come back to the Pakistanis, who have laid some more stuff on the table, and the negotiations continue. But time is running out for the Iranians. It seems as if they feel like they can still dictate terms. They haven't quite figured out that that's not going to work out for them. And so Trump is getting a little irritated about how slow they are going, and the recalcitrance of the Iranians at the negotiating table. And he has said, and this is from justthenews.com, I think it is. This is Yahoo News, I'm sorry. Donald Trump warned Iran that there would be nothing left of the country if its leaders did not agree to a peace deal with the United States. Washington has been locked in conflict with Tehran since U.S. and Israeli forces launched joint strikes on February 28th, and has struggled to make any diplomatic progress toward ending the war that has shaken the Middle East. For Iran, the clock is ticking, and they better get moving fast, the president wrote, or there won't be anything left of them. Time is of the essence. His latest threats toward Iran, evidence of his growing frustration over the deadlock in talks to end the war and reopen the Strait of Hormuz, followed indications that Tehran would reject Washington's latest peace proposal. Okay? I mean, we lay it out there for you. Here's the bottom line, Iran. You can't have a nuclear weapon. We can come to terms on a lot of things, but that is non-negotiable. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, and if they say that they are peaceful, that their nuclear program is for peaceful purposes, then why not work with other people to put in some nuclear, generated power plants? They'd be happy to do that. There are people who would be happy to put those inside Iran and to manage them in a way that everybody can be safe and secure. But that's not what they want. They want to be regional power. They want to destroy Israel. And everybody who gets upset about what's going on in Iran, I would say to you, I can think of one thing worse than the war with Iran. There's absolutely one thing worse than the war with Iran. If Iran lobbed a nuclear weapon at somebody. I mean, do we not understand how dangerous the world would be if Iran had nuclear weapons? I don't understand why people don't get that. Or if they get it, their response is, well, I'm against it because Trump is for it. That's so crazy. That's so nuts. We have a vested national security interest. The world has a national security interest in making sure that Iran does not have nor never develops a nuclear weapon. Trump warns, this is from FoxNews.com, Iran's clock is ticking, move faster, there won't be anything left. Fresh off a trek to meet China's Xi Jinping face-to-face, he is apparently weighing restarting military action on Iran. Fox News Digital reported on Sunday. President also had a call with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And here's what Netanyahu said. He said, our eyes are open regarding Iran. He said, I will speak today as I do every few days with our friend President Trump. Trump remains at the White House this weekend. He did no public or press appearances. It seemed to be really focused and getting really refocused, however, after the trip to China on what's going on with Iran. Can we resolve it? There was apparently he got a UFO briefing this weekend, what you're hearing. The prevailing assessment inside Iran is that the president may resort to restarting military action, and Tehran is now deliberately pursuing a strategy of deception and delay with the hopes of buying time, will complicate any potential return to war, two regional intelligence officials have told Fox News. I think what's going on here is that Trump doesn't really want to do the next thing, but may have to. He has said, look, the last thing I want to do is come in and destroy all your power plants, to destroy your power grid, to undo the infrastructure of this country, to bomb it back literally to the Stone Ages. He says he can do this, and I believe him, inside an hour. I remember there was a time, some other president, I can't remember who it was, might want to say might have been Obama. But I remember we took some military action against some country, and we wanted to disable their electrical grid. It was a cakewalk. It was so easy. Apparently we have, all kinds of technology that can accomplish that in very, very short order, so that it would take years to rebuild. He doesn't want to do that. But if the Iranians can't come to the table in some, way to try to resolve this matter and understand that they are simply not going to be able to have a nuclear weapon, then I don't know what his options are. He might have to go in there and just clean their clock and then bug out. It will be a long, long time before they could rebuild. And in the meantime, it's in their best interest to go ahead and open the Strait of Hormuz, and we could focus on a mission to make sure that crucial waterway is once again open without engaging with Iran any further. So I think we're close. I think something could happen. One of the things that you learn as a reporter over the years is that you should watch what the military planes are doing, where they're going, and it's easy to track that stuff, very easy. If you see large movements of aircraft one way or another, it generally suggests that something may be up. Where are the ships? Where are the planes? Where are the submarines? And where's all of our technology? How it is being aligned? We have increased our situation. The thing that is sort of the open question, and I think it's a fair question, is what have the Iranians done during this time when they have not been in conflict? Have they been able to reconstitute their military on any level? I don't think that they can do anything that we can't handle. And we've made it very clear that we can just go in there with impunity and do that. But what have they been able to do anything that might throw us a surprise? The other side of that is we have been building up our resources, and we're probably in better shape now than we were when we started this whole thing. So interesting to watch. The general sense is that something is up and that Iran has really run out of time. What happens next? Well, we'll just keep an eye on it and let you know. Let's call it 15 minutes past the hour of 7 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Forecast today calls for a high of unbelievably 92 degrees. Nice day on tap. Temperatures in the 80s the rest of the week, but you should know, and this is really important for a lot of people, looks like we're about to get some rain. The forecast for the next 7 days is each and every day has a pretty good chance of rain. So looks like some rain finally may be headed our way. J.D. Vance, he is absolutely embracing this whole idea of being the fraud czar. He is absolutely trying to do what he can to crack down on fraud. And some of the things that we're learning as he continues this is quite shocking. That the level of fraud, waste, and abuse in the federal government is unbelievably high. And it's been that way for a while. And for some reason, nobody has been paying attention to it. Here's J.D. Vance talking about his effort to find fraud, waste, and abuse in government.
No one ever asked themselves, are the American people being fleeced? Nobody ever asked, for example, if you're paying hundreds of billions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars to a Medicare provider, is that provider actually giving services to people? Or let's say you have somebody who's claiming that they need help under Medicaid to provide care for an autistic child. Was anybody actually asking the question, do they have an autistic child? Do they even have a child at all who would need to benefit from these services? So the fact that nobody ever asked the question is a scandal, but it's one of the things the President of the United States came in saying, we have to fix this, we have to change this, and we have started doing exactly that. If people ask me all the time, Kaylee, is this a difficult job? Like, is it hard to find fraud? And the unfortunate answer is no, it's not.
Isn't that interesting? Isn't that fascinating? That it's not hard to find it. You just have to go out there and try to look. It is everywhere. It's easy to find.
And there's so much of it. There's so much across so many different programs. You mentioned a lot of them just in the lead up to the question. What I try to think of myself when I think of goals is 2 years from now, I hope that it's hard for us to find the fraud. That's the ultimate measure of success because there is so much sitting on top that nobody's really looked at. We've changed that. We've got to keep on going after it. Again, this is not rocket science. The fraud is right there for everybody to see. I'll give you a crazy statistic. We closed down 800 fraudulent hospice centers. Think about this. If you're running a business and the federal government closes down your main source of revenue, do you write a letter? Do you make a phone call? 780 of those that we've closed down, we haven't even heard a single thing.
Listen, that is remarkable. So they shut down 800 operations that were getting taxpayer money, and 780 of them knew better than to call and ask questions about it. Not a peep. What does that tell you? It tells you everything you need to know, that this whole mess is quite frankly, very widespread. It's everywhere. And when people, have their money shut down by the federal government and nobody says anything about it, that they weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing.
From anybody. That's how bad the fraud is. They can't even make an argument that they weren't engaged in fraud, so to the point that when we shut them down, they wouldn't even pick up the phone and try to turn those services back on. We've just looked where nobody else has been looking, whether it's Gavin Newsom or anybody else. And by the way, Kaylee, one of the things that we're trying to take very seriously, we're not going to prejudge the legal outcome, but when you tell me that, when I hear about a report that says to the governor, here's all this fraud, and he doesn't do anything about it, I ask myself, was anybody engaged in criminal wrongdoing? Was anybody in his office engaged in criminal wrongdoing? Again, I'm not going to say yes, but I am going to promise the American people we're going to look into that stuff, we're going to investigate it, and we're going to take it seriously, because if there was criminal wrongdoing, then people ought to go to prison for it.
Listen, I love what this administration is doing. I look at it and I say, I understand that Democrats just have, Trump derangement syndrome, and anything that Trump does, they're automatically going to be against it. But how can you be against, making sure that the world is safe and that Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon? How can you be against that? Do you want Iran to have a nuclear weapon? Do you think that's the right solution? I don't understand how you can say what you like, but I mean, it is in the best interest of the United States for us to make sure that they never get that nuclear weapon. It's in the world's interest. It needed to be done, and it got to the point where we run out of options. So I'm glad he's doing that. I love the fact that he's going after waste, fraud, and abuse in a big way. I love that he's caring enough about the nation's capital to try to fix things up and make them, nice and new again. So, I mean, I don't understand why everybody has these automatic knee-jerk reactions when in fact, how can you be against fraud, waste, and abuse? The money is not going where it's supposed to go. This is taxpayer money. Every taxpayer loves the fact that we are now finding that a lot of the money that we've been sending to government was being used in a wasteful way. Maybe we don't have a spending problem. Maybe we have a fraud, waste, and abuse problem. I love that he's doing it. I think it's going to play off big benefits, and I hope he's right. I hope that in 2 years from now, when the term of this president is over and starting to wind down, that it will be really hard to find more evidence of waste, fraud, and abuse. Man, there's a lot of it out there, and we're just beginning to get a sense of how much waste, fraud, and abuse there actually is. Let's call it 22 minutes now past the hour of 7 o'clock on Super Talk.
Well, probably to no one's surprise, oil prices continue to rise, and that continues to stick all of us who try to fill up our gas tanks. We'll have the latest on where all that stands. Also, about 250,000 people who ride the nation's largest commuter rail system, they're going to have to find a different way to work. We'll get to that story as well. It's all coming up at 7:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey, this is Pastor Al, and join us on Super Talk 99.7, Sunday evenings from 7 to 8. We're going to look at the news from a biblical perspective.
Hey, it's Dan Mandis from Super Talk 99.7 WTN and Nashville's Morning News. I'm here with Chris from USS, United Structural Systems. He's checking out my basement, my foundation, my crawl space to see if there's anything wrong. Fingers crossed. All right, so there's good news and there's bad news. The bad news is we found some cracks in my basement wall. The good news, I've got Chris here who's going to walk me through the next steps.
Yes, so unfortunately, your house has been subject to the pressure of the dirt. The hydrostatic pressure, heavy dirt pushes on foundation walls, and you got a little bit of what we call bowing. So that wall is pushed in a little bit. But we have a lifetime warranty solution for that. So we install, usually in a day or two, this can be done in most situations, we install carbon fiber straps, which keep the wall from moving inward at any point in the future. It's a lifetime warranty for anybody that ever owns this house. So it's a quick and routine thing that we do, but it yields some long-lasting benefits.
It's a great selling point if you want to sell your house.
Absolutely. Good thing about our warranties is they're not only transferable, like the contract says, they're automatically transferred when you sell your house. So you don't have to sign any paperwork or even send us an email saying that you sold your house. Warranty would transfer to the next owner.
It is 28 minutes now past the hour of 7 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in for Dan Mandis on Nashville's Morning News. Dan returns tomorrow. Coming up here in just a few minutes, I think some interesting stuff is going on with regard to Nashville and the way that they have decided they want to spend your tax dollars. If you're a taxpayer in Nashville, you may want to stick around and listen to exactly how the mayor wants to spend money and where he wants to cut. Because I have a feeling you might disagree with the mayor's vision here. And we'll get into that in just a little bit. Also, the license plate reader, very controversial in Nashville and in other places as well. What's happening with these license plate readers? I'm in favor of them, but a lot of people are not. And I'll talk about that somewhat. And what's happening out at B&A today at 11 o'clock? Well, it'll be rather explosive. Let's put it that way. All of those stories and much more straight ahead right here on Super Talk 99.7. Right now, it's time for the news with Jay Harper in the little news closet there. And we'll be back in a moment with more news and information.
Coming up on 7:30, I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. I've got your forecast and a traffic report, so stand by. Oil prices pushed higher overnight, along with tensions in the Middle East. Iranian drones, they struck a nuclear plant in the UAE, and President Trump, he's issuing stark warnings to Iran. Here's ABC's Rebecca Jarvis.
Oil prices above $106 a barrel this morning, and that flows almost immediately through to the pump. The national average for a gallon of regular is now $4.47, and it all comes as travelers are preparing to hit the road in record numbers for Memorial Day. Drivers will face the highest price of gas in 4 years. Prices up $1.33 a gallon from last year's prices, and still continuing to climb with the region so uncertain.
Well, some 250,000 people who ride the nation's largest commuter rail system to work every day, and they're going to have to find a different way to get there. The Long Island Railroad strike, it started over the weekend, now enters the first work week. ABC's Krista McNally, she's in Ronkonkoma, New York, the end of the line for alternate shuttle bus service.
We were told the first bus that rolled out of here this morning took about 54 minutes to get to the drop-off location in Queens, and there were 58 passengers on that bus. If you decided to not get on the bus, I guess another option would be a ride-share option. That price right now going from Ronkonkoma, if you were to go all the way to Penn Station, is around $150, and we've seen that sort of steadily going up through the morning.
A $1 billion measure to pay for security around the new White House ballroom. It was rejected over the weekend by the Senate parliamentarian who said it violates the rule Republicans must use to pass the bill without Democratic votes. ABC's Ali Pecorin is on the Start Here podcast.
We've already seen spokespeople for Majority Leader John Thune coming out and saying they intend to try to redraft the language to bring it in line with the Senate rules. So hopefully that language can still be included. Republicans are far from done pushing for this $1 billion allocation that they say is going to go for a lot of things related to security, including the ballroom, but not just the ballroom.
Let's take a look at the market numbers. This is brought to you by Beacon Capital Management. They're online at beaconcm.com. The Dow before the opening bell down 170. The S&P futures down 12. The Nasdaq down 20.5. That's the latest news, traffic, and weather. They're coming up. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News. Out in Rutherford County, this is actually the Christiana area, 24 westbound past Epps Mill Road. We've got a wreck there. Getting back to the city of Nashville here, an injury crash. Clarksville Pike is South Hamilton Road. And still trying to clear this wreck that's been there a while. Actually, it's over on the shoulder. Crash at 24 westbound at Harding Place. We've got your traffic every 10 minutes, every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 36 minutes past the hour, 36 minutes past the hour of 7 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, in for Dan Mandis on Nashville's Morning News. Dan returns tomorrow. Coming up at 9 o'clock, we'll be joined by Chris Sam. Well, he'll probably drop by about 8:30, so we'll have a lot to talk with Chris here in just a short while. I want to talk about license plate cameras. License plate readers. They're becoming ubiquitous. They're in a lot of different places, just not in Nashville. I think there are a lot of private license plate readers, but the city and the police department doesn't have access to license plate readers as they do in other jurisdictions. I tell you, one that's been very effective is right here in Wilson County. The Wilson County Mount Juliet Police, Wilson County Sheriff's Office, they are using them in a very effective way, and they're having a real impact on crime. In Austin yesterday, where the city council has been against the idea of the license plate readers. Well, they had a big shooting over the weekend. I mean, let me just pull up a couple of stories. It actually made the New York Times. Pretty interesting stuff. I have to pull up a different story because I can't read that one. Here we go. What we know about the shootings in Austin. Well, I'm sorry. I'm having a real problem with my computer here. Shelter in place in Austin lifted after 2 teens arrested in 10 random shootings, 1 suspect still at large. That's right. They told the people of Austin yesterday, maybe you should just stay inside because we got kids who are going around shooting up the place and we're having a hard time tracking them down. Now comes the question is, well, would you have had trouble tracking them down if you had the license plate readers like the police department wants? Here's from KVUE in Austin, Texas.
It's about whether license plate reading cameras, or LPRs, could have helped police stop those suspects even faster. Now, the cameras can be installed on major roadways, and they record license plate numbers. If a suspect's vehicle is spotted in a certain area, police can then be notified. The city of Austin got rid of LPRs and the LPR program last summer after some people raised concern about privacy and how the data was being stored. Here's what Austin's Mayor Kirk Watson said about the technology.
When we talk about Austin being safe and people feeling safe in Austin, we need to make sure that our law enforcement has the tools that they need so that we can keep people safe. I'm not going to speculate about whether or not you might piece things together sooner. Things might, in this instance, but we certainly know that, what I'll say is this, probably having license plate readers would have been helpful under these circumstances.
Now, you saw Police Chief Lisa Davis there. She said she's open to having conversations once again about license plate reading cameras.
Well, what about Nashville? Why are we still dragging our feet? I mean, the money apparently has been set aside, but there are some on the council who don't understand the value to police of having these license plate readers. Okay, so everybody says, but Brian, privacy. Well, I have just one little piece of advice for you, or piece of information for you. You may not be aware of this, but the Supreme Court has said, in no uncertain terms, that there is no expectation of privacy on a public street. And the way these systems are set up, for example, I was very concerned about this at first as well. Is it a privacy invasion? Well, the way they set these things up is you can't have, see, it scans all the license plates, but it doesn't ping on them unless it's in the database to say, we're looking for this car. And we're looking for this car because it's tied to this crime. And here's the case, and this is the person, and yes, but you have to have it connected to a criminal case. You can't just randomly, use these systems to track people. You have to have a reason to look for certain license plates. But the way these things work is, if that license plate shows up, an alert goes off, and more times than not, in the places where they are, they get to them, they arrest the people, and they get them off the streets. The problem is, in places like Nashville, I don't think they really want to take criminals off the street. I think they're just fine with not knowing that we're, not taking the criminals off the street and not having this vital tool. Look, I'm convinced that they can put guardrails in place to make sure that the system is not abused. But here's what you don't know. I found another story today that I was looking at with regard to this. Do you know that many companies, retail operations, have their own license plate readers? Private license plate readers? They do. And one that was mentioned prominently in the article that I read was Lowe's. You go to Lowe's, there's a license plate reader. Takes a look at your license plate on the way in and on the way out. So they know if there's a problem, they can go back and trace down the license plate, find out what happened in the parking lot, find out, if they see somebody, that stole some stuff and ran away with it, they can just look at the license plate as they leave the parking lot. It's a tool being used to make sure that they're not losing a bunch of stuff to fraud and theft. So, they are there. It's just that our police department doesn't have access to this information, which has been proven to be so effective in so many other places. They're not alone. This debate's going on all over the country. In Troy, New York, I have a story here, WashingtonPost.com, talking about a civic uproar began quietly when a mom walking her newborn spotted a strange black contraption at the end of her block. It was a camera with a solar panel. She found out it was an artificial intelligence-assisted license plate reader, the type that had caused privacy concerns around the country. She emailed her neighbors. It sparked a fierce debate in this town of 52,000. The residents called for the devices to be taken off the streets. The mayor wants them to stay. He's a Republican. The Democrats want them gone. And so far, this battle is now underway in this community and others. Look, I get the concerns that we have about privacy, but the fact of the matter is, you don't have any privacy on a public street. You just don't. Everybody's got a camera, and you're always, you driving to work, you're probably on 50 cameras before you get to work. They're everywhere. So why shouldn't our police department be given the ability to use these license plate readers to get criminals off the street and to make our streets safer? Why is it that we don't want that for Nashville? Seems like to me we need to get off the dime here and get this done in Nashville. By the way, the mayor has some really interesting ideas in Nashville about how money should be spent. And I'll get into that in just a moment. Right now, a quick check of weather and traffic at 45 minutes past the hour of 7 o'clock. Forecast today, 92 blistering degrees and rain starting tomorrow. There's a good chance of rain for about 7 days in a row, so maybe we'll get through this drought that we're in. Mayor Freddie O'Connell has a proposed budget Are you ready for this? What is the number one job of city government? I would argue that the number one job of city government is public safety. Making sure that your police department has what it needs. And I think they need those license plate readers. I do. You want your fire department to have everything that it needs. And that both of those institutions are well funded by government, by taxpayer dollars. But the mayor, in his proposed budget, has stripped nearly $400,000 out of the fire department budget. From Fox17.com. At a time when Nashville is one of the fastest growing cities in the country, Mayor Freddie O'Connell's proposed budget would cut nearly $400,000 from the fire department next year. When proposing his spending plan earlier this month, O'Connell said city revenues are flat while costs continue to rise. His proposed budget prioritizes creating more affordable housing, increased school funding, fully funding employee salaries, and a half-cent grocery tax reduction. Oh, thank you for that. That's so helpful. That half a cent. Why bother? Look, I have a feeling that if I were to go through line by line, I could find the money. I think you could find the money, and I think you could look at a lot of the money that's being spent and you say, why are we spending money on that in the city of Nashville? Why is it that we are cutting our fire department by $400,000? Why is it that we can't give our police department a basic tool that other police departments have that have proven that they can reduce crime? Why is it that we can't do these things for the people in Nashville? I mean, come on. The city is growing by leaps and bounds. Some people believe we need as many as 6 new fire stations to keep up with the growth of Nashville. We haven't done that. We've been growing pretty significantly as a city in the last 15 to 20 years, said Metro Council member Jordan Huffman during a hearing. That means a lot of additional structures that weren't here 20 years ago, and we've not added any fire stations. When asked how many stations the department would need in an ideal situation, the fire chief, William Swan, good guy, by the way, said 6 new stations would be a great start, including locations in East Bank, Midtown, and throughout Davidson County. We need more fire stations. We don't need to be cutting our fire department by $400,000. I mean, come on. Let's get our priorities set straight. Police, fire, city services, make sure the trash is picked up and pick up off the street, and then make sure that we have everything we need with regard to things like infrastructure. Maybe we should be paying a little more attention to what's going on with our electrical grid and what's going on with NES. But no, what we're doing is we're going to take in all of the hard-earned money and we're taking it for social programs in Nashville and taking it away from public safety operations like our fire department. You may not like the police, but I mean, we really do need a fire department. We need to know that if there's a fire, we have the resources to handle it. Do we have the resources now to handle a major fire in downtown Nashville with structures that are 30, 40, 50 stories high? No, I don't think we do. I don't think we're ready for that. And I don't think we have enough fire department and enough ambulances to get it done. This is going to have an impact on response time. This is not a good thing. Why are we cutting at a time when we need to be growing our public safety operations in the city of Nashville? By the way, if you're out near International Airport B&A, Nashville International Airport, good old B&A, at 11 o'clock this morning, get ready. There's going to be a major explosion. Blasts are on the way for Nashville's International Airport, according to WSMV. Going to be happening twice a day for the next month. 2 blasts nearly every day so construction can begin on a new parking garage and a rental car facility. The blasts are scheduled to take place at 11 a.m. and at 3 p.m. on weekdays from May 18th, that's today, all the way through June 15th, so the better part of a month. It will depend on weather, but it will happen almost every day at 11 at 3. And to make sure that the people who are going to BNA are safe when they do the blasting, there will be traffic stops lasting 3 to 5 minutes at that time. So if you're going to the airport, understand that at 11 o'clock you're going to have to pause for these blasts, these construction-related blasts at BNA. 52 minutes now past the hour of 7 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
Coming up at the top of the hour, the judge overseeing Luigi Mangioni's murder case and the killing of that United Healthcare CEO, he's set to issue a critical ruling today. Also, Metro Police, they've arrested a couple of guys accused of stealing thousands in scams involving payment apps. We'll have that for you coming up at 8 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Let's call it 57 minutes past the hour of 7 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. You're listening to Nashville's Morning News with Dan Mandis, but I'm Brian Wilson filling in for Dan. Dan returns tomorrow. Glad to be here on this Monday where temperatures are going to be pretty nice. We're looking at a high today of 92 degrees. I mean, tell you, bring it on. I'm ready for a little heat. But also, here's the other news, and this is huge. Probably the most important thing you're going to hear is that we are now scheduled in the forecast for about 7 days with a pretty good chance of rain each and every day for the next week, starting tomorrow. Because, man, we need some rain. Things are dry. My yard is looking pretty rough. I don't know about yours, but mine's not doing well. Hey, listen, I don't know how to segue into this story, so I'll just hit you with it. Doctors are now apparently using fly larvae in their practice. We're talking maggots. That's right. I hate the word. It's just such, you have such a sort of reaction to that word. When you say maggot, it's just like, ooh, nasty maggots. But apparently they're being used in the medical world by doctors in a very interesting way. Maggots can remove dead flesh from a wound with a degree of precision that surgeons can't achieve. And that makes them an asset for certain patients. Now, these are, so don't be going out and grabbing a bunch of maggots out of your trash and applying them. These are special medical maggots, which are clean and sterile. And they're put to, but apparently they're being used. It's called maggot therapy. For example, after a stay in a hospital, a guy came back with a terrible sore on his left heel. He later developed a bed sore. Those kinds of wounds really are pretty nasty. They smell really bad. The doctors and nurses treating her husband had never heard of using maggots, but a doctor who had a lifelong interest in bugs ordered a bunch up from a modern maggot therapy clinic and got a shipment of maggots sent in overnight. Hey, hey, FedEx, I need some maggots. Medicinal maggots are considered FDA-cleared medical devices, which are specially raised in laboratories to be germ-free. You get a little vial with these teeny-weeny little maggots on a piece of gauze, and it actually takes care of the problem in a big way. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Maggots coming to a hospital near you. It is 59 minutes, almost 8 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in for Dan Mandis on Nashville's Morning News.
It is 8 a.m. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. A weather forecast and a traffic report are on the way. Stand by. The judge overseeing Luigi Mangioni's murder case in the killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, he's set to issue a critical ruling today on what evidence and testimony prosecutors can use during the accused assassin's state trial. ABC's Peter Haralambous has that story.
Judge Gregory Caro is considering Mangioni's request to prohibit prosecutors from using the evidence that police seized from Mangioni's backpack when he was apprehended 5 days after the shooting, including the alleged murder weapon and writings that prosecutors say amount to a confession. Mangioni's lawyers have argued that police violated his rights by searching that backpack without immediately obtaining a search warrant. Mangioni's state murder trial is scheduled to begin in September.
Back here in Nashville, Metro Police arrested 2 men accused of stealing thousands of dollars from victims in scams involving payment apps here in town. Experts recently told a Channel 2 reporter here that scams occur when someone approaches you in public. They claim to need your cell phone for whatever reason, and once you hand them your phone, they quickly open those payment apps like Venmo or Zelle to send themselves money. According to Metro Police, On Saturday, Dwayne Gordon, 19, and two juvenile teens approached a woman claiming they were seeking candy donations, but instead of accepting cash, Gordon allegedly asked for the woman's cell phone and then sent himself $840 from her bank account. He was booked into the Metro Jail on Saturday on a number of charges. His bond is set at $85,000. At the time of his arrest, he was free on another incident. He was had a $10,000 bond that he was free on from an incident in January where he was charged with credit card fraud and a number of other charges. Then you have Lakeel Horton. He's 19. He was arrested on Saturday. He was palling around with Gordon and scamming people. They scammed a Mississippi tourist. At the time of Horton's arrest, he was free on a $1,000 bond for charges stemming from a similar payment app scam that occurred outside a Hermitage grocery store a couple of months ago. Horton allegedly asked for the victim's phone to make a $5 candy donation, but instead stole $1,000 from him. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News. Still working on a couple of wrecks here in the Bordeaux area. First of all, an injury crash. Clarksville Pike at South Hamilton Road. We've also got a wreck in the Whites Creek area. It would be Whites Creek Pike between Briley Parkway and West Green Lane. We've got your traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Good morning, everybody. 6 minutes past the hour of 8 o'clock now on Super Talk 99.7. I am Brian Wilson in for Dan Mandis. He was supposed to be here today, but his new grandson was a day late. arriving, and so he needed another day, and I am more than happy to be here. Want to welcome on in to the show here today, Stokes Nielsen, who is producing a concert that's going to take place on Wednesday, May 20th, and it is called Spirit of the Country, Justice for Our Daughters, a concert to take on the problem of human trafficking. Mr. Nielsen, good to have you on the program here today. Tell us a little bit about this and how it came to be and what you hope to accomplish with all of this.
Hey, Brian, thank you so much for having me. Actually, about 2.5 years ago, I was approached by the United States DEA to help with the fentanyl epidemic by having music outreach. And we did that through our friends in country music. We got the outreach about the fentanyl epidemic. It was a very successful initiative, and a year later, I was approached by one of our great law enforcement heroes from the TBI about doing the same type thing with human trafficking. And it is a major issue, not only throughout America, but in this region as well. So we decided to put together a concert to help raise awareness about the issue of human trafficking, especially in Middle Tennessee. Really proud to have TBI a part of this. They're going to be at the event. It's at the Williamson County Performing Arts Center. We have a great artist, Chris Jansen, is going to be performing. It's totally free for the community. So anybody that wants to come can go to WCPACTN.com and get their free ticket there. Brian, it's really about raising awareness of this issue, and in conjunction with that, the Spirit of the Country Fund is going to make a commitment from July 4th of this year to July 4th of next year as part of 250 America, a commitment of $100,000 dedicated to raising awareness about the issues of human trafficking, and especially how drug-related human trafficking is such a big problem. And the first check that we will be writing will be for $25,000 to Justice for Our Daughters, and we will be presenting that on Wednesday night. It's just really critical that the community becomes aware that this issue is affecting us every day. Also, for parents to be very aware of what their teenagers are doing online, because a lot of these sexual predators are attempting to groom kids in their preteen ages, and there just needs to be awareness about the issue, and that's why we're doing the concert.
What's the most important thing that people can know about this particular problem? I mean, it is a lot more widespread than I think we are all realize. We live our lives, we go about our day-to-day business. We don't really think about this kind of stuff all that much, but it is a very serious problem and perhaps more widespread than most people realize.
Exactly, and I think it is first and foremost is parents talking to their kids about this, because the instances, we recently had an instance 2 years ago of a guy that, thank God, our law enforcement here arrested this guy, but he had been grooming a teenager, a Middle Tennessee preteen for 4 years before he was caught. And all online. And this was a guy out of Canada. And these things happen kind of every day in around America, and parents really need to be aware that whatever their kids are doing online, they need to be aware of that, and aware that there are bad actors out there that are attempting to access our kids.
Well, you said it's a free concert,
yes,
and Chris Jansen is your headliner. But I also see here on the poster it says, and I know how Nashville is.
Yeah.
Sometimes people show up at things like this.
Well, exactly.
And they sometimes say, I don't really want to put my name out there, but I'll be there to support you. You're going to have some surprises
we are
for us?
we are going to have some surprises. I actually got a text this morning. I'm really excited about this particular artist that's coming out. I was out at the ACMs, Brian, talking about this issue. And there are a number of artists that are excited about being a part of this. So everybody come out. It's going to be a really great night. By the way, Chris Jansen is just one of the best performers out there. And also I want to thank Chris for being a part of this and the other artists that are, giving their time to come out and be a part of this. And everybody, it's totally free. So it's Wednesday night. Doors are at 6. Show starts at 7. WCPACTN.com to go get your tickets. And it's all about all of us banding together to fight this.
How many people do you expect will be there?
I'm feeling it's going to be a capacity crowd, Brian. So it's looking that way. So I really want everybody to come out. And as everybody knows, downtown Franklin is really awesome as well. So there'll be a lot of fun things to do after the show. But it's at the Williamson County Performing Arts Center Wednesday night, 6 p.m. Doors, 7 p.m. music.
Tell me about some of your sponsors, because you can't do something without a lot of help.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Michael Novogratz for coming on early with the Spirit of the Country concept. Brian, even when I was starting this, Mike's a dear friend of mine, and he said, Stokes, if you can use the power of music to affect change, not only with the fentanyl epidemic, which has decimated this country and been absolutely terrible for Tennessee, but if you can also help in other sectors. And we did find that there was a lot of overlap, Brian, between the drug epidemic in this country and the human trafficking epidemic, and so we wanted to address both. I want to thank the More Charitable Foundation for being the direct sponsor of this concert. It wouldn't happen without them. I want to thank CAA Brands and CAA for being a big sponsor of this, and everybody who has volunteered their time to make this happen.
You talk about the drug connection.
Yes.
What about the illegal immigration connection that we had here with wide open borders? And a lot of people felt that many of the young women who got brought over to this country were used in human trafficking.
Absolutely. That was and is, and we always must be aware that has a big part to do with this. And so being able to protect our country on all levels, protecting the border, and then protecting our kids in here from all these threats that come from external and internal threats. You're absolutely right. That is a huge issue.
All right, so go through the who, what, when, where, and why one more time for people who might be interested in going to this concert, May 20th, Wednesday, and give us all of the details.
You got it. Spirit of the Country, Justice for Our Daughters. This is a concert to take on human trafficking. Our headliner is Chris Jansen. This is free to the public. Go to WCPACTN.com to get your tickets. And really want to thank you guys for having us, Brian, and thank the whole community for coming out and supporting this event.
All right, sounds really good. And so I know you can't give me the name, but you say there's some surprises. Can you give us a hint?
I would say, Brian, come to the show and you will see it. I think you'll be really excited to see. Yep.
All right. I'm in. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We appreciate what you're doing and think it's a great thing to take on this particular topic. Stokes Nielsen, thank you for joining us here on Nashville Morning News.
Thank you, Brian. God bless you.
All right. It is now 15 minutes past the hour. Let's take a quick check of what's going on with traffic and weather. All right, our forecast calls for a high today of around 92 degrees. Unbelievably warm. I mean, I'm ready for some warm temperatures. I really am. And then here's the even better news. Warm temperatures all this week, but Tuesday for the next 7 days, the forecast has a pretty good chance of rain, which we could really, really, really need because it's so dry around here. So again, right now in Nashville, we're in the lower 70s, headed up to 92 before the day is over. Want to thank Stokes Nielsen for coming by. Really, I mean, such an important thing, and I would ask you to support it. First of all, Chris Jansen, great entertainer. Got some surprises that are going to be there. That's the way it often is in Nashville. When you got something good going on like this, somebody will say, well, look, I'm going to come by, but I don't really want you to advertise in advance. I just want to be supportive of what you're doing. And they will show up unannounced. And you'll get. I've been to several of these things where, you never know who's going to show up. And I know that Nashville has a history of doing that kind of thing. So get ready. This is a good one, and well worth your time and support, I would say. I want to talk a little bit about the midterm elections and where we are on all of that. A couple of stories that I think are pretty interesting. First of all, let's talk about the whole situation with redistricting. As you know, we had a court battle in Virginia where they did a redistricting to cut out the Republican districts and turn them all into Democrat districts, making it much more difficult for a Republican to get elected in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And everybody said, I don't know if you can do that or not. And they said, sure we can, just sit back and watch us. And then immediately, within minutes of this actually being passed into law and signed into law by Governor Spanberger, the Virginia Supreme Court ruled that it was unconstitutional. And so the Democrats said, well, hold on a minute. Well, how can it be unconstitutional? They, well, it is. It's in violation of the state constitution. And so then the Democrats wanted to appeal it to the highest court in the land, the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court has decided they don't want any part of this. Supreme Court rejected Virginia Democrats' long-shot request to revive a voter-backed redistricting plan for the Commonwealth, which was struck down by the Virginia Supreme Court last week. So this new redistricting has not withstood court scrutiny because it violates the state constitution. And everybody sort of saw that coming, and Democrats are all upset because they can't get the Supreme Court to take the case. But apparently there was no, interesting thing about this was there was no dissent offered by the Supreme Court when they decided to not take up that matter. So the lower court ruling stands. Here in Tennessee, we went through a redistricting, which apparently I think is going to stand up to constitutional scrutiny here in Tennessee. And I don't think the Supreme Court wants to get involved in that at all. What does that mean? Well, one thing that it means is that Steve Cohen, Democrat, of District 9, has said that he will not run for re-election. This happened on Friday. U.S. Representative Steve Cohen, Democrat Tennessee 9, said he has requested his name be taken off the ballot. Press conference on Friday, he said a tough decision. He was elected to Congress first time in 2006 and has served 24 years in the Tennessee State Senate before that. So he's been a lifelong politician, but he has decided that he is not going to run for re-election after they redesigned the Tennessee 9 district. You know, one thing that was thought that might happen, that was pretty interesting, got a lot of people's attention, was about the 6th congressional district, because Megan Barry, former mayor, disgraced mayor of Nashville, took out the paperwork and was contemplating running in the 6th congressional district. She very much wants to get back into politics. But having thought about it, she decided she didn't turn in her paperwork, so she is not going to be a candidate for that office, the 6th congressional district. As you know, the mayor pleaded guilty to felony theft of public funds. Her record expunged in 21. In 24, she challenged former U.S. Representative Mark Green in the general election for the 7th congressional district. She, however, has decided, after thinking about it and after taking out the paperwork, that she was not interested in running for office, congressional office, in the 6th Congressional District. Let's call it 22 minutes past the hour of 8 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in for Dan Mandis.
Coming up at the bottom of the hour, some big news for Music City NFL fans. What could that be about? Also, border wall news for the Texas-Mexico border. We'll have that coming up at 8:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
28 minutes now past the hour of 8 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Listen, we are winding down Nashville's morning news, getting ready for Chris Hand and the Chris Hand Show, which takes over at 9 o'clock. And if we're lucky, as I hope we are, we'll be talking to Chris Hand in just a few moments. In the meantime, very quickly, numbers you need to know. West Texas Intermediate crude now selling for $106 a barrel. Brent crude is up to $110 a barrel. The national average for a gallon of gas, that's nationwide, is $4.51. The Tennessee average, because we have slightly lower income taxes or taxes on gasoline, selling for $4.12 a gallon. Look, I still believe there is time for us to wrap things up in Iran. Time for I think the prices will come down very quickly once that happens. But we are definitely in a moment where we've got to decide whether we're going to hit Iran one more time or whether we're done. And it all depends on what kind of response we get from Iran. We'll talk to Chris about that and other things coming up here in just a moment. Right now, time for a check of the news. And Jay says he's got some interesting stuff coming up right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Coming up on 8:30, and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories, a weather forecast, a traffic report. Hey, we've got all that coming up. Well, according to multiple sources, the Super Bowl headed to Nashville for the first time ever, with NFL owners expected to greenlight the city's 2030 bid at an owners meeting in Florida tomorrow. Music City, of course, has never hosted the annual showpiece, but the Titans, as we all know, they're in the process of building that big domed event over there, or the thing with the roof on it, over there across the river. That's scheduled to open in the summer of next year. The new $2.1 billion Nissan Stadium, it's going to hold about 60,000 fans for the regular NFL games. But the developers say they can expand it to 70,000 for events like the Super Bowl. ESPN reports that the decision to name Nashville as the host city for the 2030 game is merely a formality, with owners expected to confirm the decision in a vote at their Spring League meeting in Orlando tomorrow. So we shall see. Well, 2 weeks ago, Customs and Border Protection Commissioner Rodney Scott promised that because of local opposition, there would be no border wall built in Big Bend National Park in Deep West Texas. Well, 1 week ago, Customs and Border Protection awarded $1.7 billion for border wall construction in Big Bend National Park.
This is Jim Ryan. Northwest of Big Bend, the Justice Department plans to use eminent domain to seize 14 acres of land owned by the Catholic Diocese of El Paso.
It's upsetting that they're going to these measures to try to take the property.
Ruben Escandon Jr. is with the Mount Cristo Rey Restoration Committee, which oversees the 29-foot statue of Christ that draws pilgrims from around the world.
The damage to the property and the monument itself is a concern.
The Trump administration says it needs the land to install barriers and other border protection technology.
That is the latest news. Traffic and weather, they're on the way. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News. A half dozen crashes being worked now. Let's get to them. Old Hickory Boulevard east of Highland Way in the Nippers Corner area. An injury crash, Harding Place at Night Valley Road. Another wreck, Danby Drive south of Harding Place. Gallatin Pike North, just north of Old Hickory Boulevard. Another West Trinity Lane at Homestead Riverway. And finally, Whites Creek Pike between Briley Parkway and West Green Lane. We've got your traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 36 minutes now past the hour of 8 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson in for Dan Mandis, who returns back to his rightful place tomorrow, as far as we know. We know. But we are always happy when we can bring Chris Hand into the conversation. He's up next following this program. And Chris, how are you on this Monday morning?
I'm good, man, and pretty exciting times. I mean, Dan gets another grandbaby. Jones getting another grandbaby. That's right. We're adding to the Super Talk family. There's a line of succession that keeps getting longer.
That's right. We got to bring the next generation along. And, the Dan's, I didn't hear, has Joan become a grandma again?
Yes.
Has yet?
Yes. Well, I think so. I'm assuming so. Have you heard anything, Sam?
I heard the detail.
Yeah, I thought Joan was first because we had a whole poll before Dan left on whose grandchild would get here first. And I'm pretty sure Joan's daughter-in-law, whichever, had their kid. And then as Brian, you're here because the baby Mandis was delayed.
Delayed by a day. That's right.
It's almost like it's genetic for the timing to be off for that child.
I would just say, you can't let those kids start running your life that early. You gotta put your foot down. You gotta.
That's right.
Set the standard early.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it's exciting. It is an exciting time. News-wise, I'm sort of getting the sense, Chris, tell me what you think, that maybe we're about to heat up things in Iran again.
It sounds like it. It certainly does. I mean, it seems like the negotiations are not working out, and Donald Trump is losing his patience, what little patience he had. But we kind of had that on the table already. Last week, he said, 1% chance? It's like a patient's on life support, and they got a 1% chance of surviving. That's the way the ceasefire was going. Then we see the attacks in the UAE over the weekend. So yeah, I mean, I'm under the impression that this isn't going to last, and we'll see what happens next. I just want to get through it. I want to get it done as quickly as humanly possible. What does that look like? I don't know.
Yeah,
your guess is as good as mine.
He says that whatever they want to do, they can do quickly. And then the question is, well, then how do you get? Do you just leave then after you do that and just say, okay, you're on your own? You still have to get the Strait of Hormuz open, so there's that continuing problem. And I don't know. It just seems to me that the Iranians have not yet figured out that they really just have to go along here. They really don't have an option. And all we really want is just one thing: no nuclear weapon.
Yeah, I mean, it should be easy enough. But it's never easy, right? It seems like one half of the Iranians want to negotiate and the other half don't, so we're stuck.
But I'm with you. I'm now beginning to get a little concerned about the timing of it, because I thought, when they said 4 to 6 weeks and now we're in week 11, look, it's not surprising that things don't go quite as you think they're going to go in the early going, but, tick-tock, we're looking at the midterm elections and all of that. And the question is, can we get some sense of normalcy going on with the economy before we get to the midterm election? So time is getting to be sort of a critical thing.
Yeah, and no Americans want to have $4 gas all summer long. That's going to weigh heavy on them. I have a little less heartburn on the midterms after the redistricting war wins that we've had over the past couple of weeks. Getting those extra Republican seats in there, getting more safe Republican districts. It does give me a little bit more patience, but it's tough. This is a very unpopular war, especially among conservatives. You have your older conservatives who are all in line with it, and they say, you know, I remember what happened in the 70s. I remember what it looked like before. But then you have a lot of younger conservatives who say this isn't what was promised to us. The campaign was no forever wars, which you can make the argument it's not a forever war because we've only been there for a few weeks now, which I understand. But the heartburn is still there, the PTSD from the Iraq and Afghanistan conflicts. And then the other promise was affordability. And with $4 gas and inflation coming from that, you know better than anybody, gas prices ripple through the economy the quickest. People are fed up, and they're kind of like, what does this have to do with me again?
Yeah, I know. I just can't, to those people who say, you know, I don't like what we're doing here. Well, nobody wants to be at war. You know, I don't think Donald Trump wants to be doing this, but I keep coming back to one question that nobody seems to have the answer for. How expensive would it be if Iran lobbed a nuclear weapon?
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, and I think that you could make the argument that the threat was there. You can make the argument that that's one of the reasons why we took Venezuela before we started this operation. You know, when we saw the missile launch to Diego Garcia, granted, one broke up midair and one was intercepted, but that was, 4,000 kilometers away, which if they had missile launchers in Venezuela, that's within striking range. So I get it, but I think a lot of people are looking at this and going, okay, now, if it was Kamala Harris who said that they degraded the nuclear program and completely obliterated it and then went back into the war as quickly as Donald Trump did, the entire conservative base would be revolting. If it was Kamala Harris who said it was 4 to 6 weeks and we're now at, week 11-ish?
Week 11, I think it is.
The entire conservative base would be revolting. So you have a lot of people that are looking at this and trying to look at it objectively and saying, this doesn't seem like it's hitting the same.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he can get in and get it done. Whatever's going to happen, I think it needs to happen quickly, and I'd like to see it resolved in short order. So I think there needs to be a period of quiet prosperity where Trump just doesn't say much, doesn't do much, just work on the economy, get things rocking there, focus on that like a laser beam. And if we can get that, I think there's still time for us to have a good outcome in the midterm elections. But it is getting to the point now where I'm beginning to worry about the timing. I didn't think we'd be in it quite this long. I'll be the first to tell you that for sure. We'll see. It's going to be an interesting day.
And on the economy front, we do have Kevin Warsh coming in, who is going to be taking over for James Powell. So there's probably a better chance of interest rates being lowered. But to your point on a time of just low-key, chill-out vibes, I don't see it coming because I think as soon as this gets wrapped up or before it even gets wrapped up in Iran, we're going to be in Cuba. I mean, the news over the weekend, U.S. eyes attack drone threat from Cuba. Have you seen this?
Yeah, I have seen this. Yeah.
I mean, this is a wild piece of news.
And you wonders what was going on. I mean, we had the CIA director flying a big old government, not a low-key CIA unmarked jet. He went in there with a big old United States of America jet.
Yep.
And met with key players. And then you hear, and now the Cubans are thinking about launching drone attacks against the United States. Of course, they're only 90 miles away. That would be easy to do. You could do it pretty easily if you had them. But so what's true? Are we close to some kind of deal there, or is there a left-hand, right-hand thing going on inside Cuba where part of the old regime wants to keep up the war with the United States and others are ready to make a change? I don't know what's going on, but
the media.
I don't think we're going to go in there though. I don't think we're planning to go into Cuba.
But you know the media better than anybody else. Do you feel like this story that's been planted over the weekend was just that? It's a leaked story intentionally to heighten the tensions a little bit and let everybody know that there is a threat from Cuba where there may not be one to justify some military action in Cuba?
Yeah, and one of the things that was said was that the attacks would be launched against Guantanamo Bay.
Yep, and U.S. military vessels and possibly Key West.
Wow.
This is how Fox News put it yesterday.
It's reportedly on alert for a potential Cuban drone attack threat. Axios writing, quote, Cuba has acquired more than 300 military drones and recently began discussing plans to use them to attack the U.S. base at Guantanamo Bay, U.S. military vessels, and possibly Key West. But Cuba's foreign minister is denying the claims, writing, without any legitimate excuse whatsoever, the U.S. government builds day after day a fundamental case to justify the ruthless economic war against the Cuban people. Cuba neither threatens nor desires war.
I mean, I think the main question I would have for you is why didn't they use these EDM type beats when you were at Fox News, Brian? I mean, what is with the music? But okay, music aside, it's like you ever get taken out of a movie, you're like, this doesn't feel right, and like I'm out now. It always happens to me when I'm watching Netflix or something and something woke pops up. I'm like, okay, well, this is ruined. But music aside, your thoughts on the Cuba stuff, especially with their foreign minister saying this is bovine scatology.
Well, it could be laying the predicate to say, well, hey, they got drones and they're going to attack us. We got to go do something. I could see them using that as a pretext. And are they real? I don't know. Are there really drones there? Who knows? But the bottom line is, I don't think if we decided to do something in Cuba, I think it could be over in a couple of hours, like it was in Venezuela.
I could see that. I also think that we could load up a couple boats and arm a few Cubans in Florida and just say, have at it, and we wouldn't have to do anything else.
JFK tried that, I think, but it was a different time. This for sure. I don't know. It'll be interesting. They are in a real bad place in Cuba, and I think there is a feeling that if not now, when? But you know that Marco Rubio wants a shot at Cuba.
What do you think?
For sure.
What do you think has a quicker chance of rebounding? Is it, like, say all things were equal, and what happened with Venezuela happened with Cuba? Does a state that has been dominated by communism bounce back first, or does a narco state like Venezuela bounce back first?
Well, I think Venezuela is already bouncing back in pretty good order, from what I can tell. I mean, where they're now the money is set aside so that it actually goes to the people of Venezuela and not to the corrupt dictators there. So, I think they have the opportunity to bounce back pretty quick. And I think, quite frankly, they want to bounce back and they want to have more normalized relationships with the rest of the world, those who are there now. I think it could happen pretty quick I think it's happening already in Venezuela. Look, there are people in this country who desperately want to go into Cuba and help them rebuild that island nation. And it wouldn't take that much because the resources would be there. All these expatriates who came here from Cuba, they made good livings. They want to go back. They want to reinvest. They're passionate about it. I think we could have Cuba up and running and make it one of the garden spots of the Caribbean.
I mean,
in relatively short order.
It does seem like there are Cubans much more eager to go back and make Cuba great again than there are Venezuelans trying to go back to Venezuela and make Venezuela great again.
Yeah, you're right about that for sure. So did you see over the weekend that Donald Trump, my favorite topic, posted a picture of him, is an AI photo of him escorting an alien.
I did see that.
And apparently he got a briefing this weekend. And now the question is, what kind of information is going to come down the pike and how soon we're going to have it? I'm reading Burchett and Burleson and Luna are all talking, and they're saying the same things, that we're about to get some major revelations with regard to aliens. And, it sounds like, whatever the big stuff is, maybe just around the corner.
So what do you think the big stuff is going to be, though? I think that's the main question. Is it going to be more fuzzy photos that don't really prove anything? Is it going to be more FBI graphic design image, that was done in Photoshop? Or is it going to be the real deal? Because I just have a hard time buying a lot of this stuff when it is so grainy. When Donald Trump says, we have satellites that we know the moment that the Iranians are digging out, and they're so crystal clear that we can see the badge number on an Iranian's uniform. So if we have satellites that are that good, how come we don't get any images of these aliens that are that good?
Well, I think you answered your own question. We do have that technology, and we do have the ability. And some of the best and sharpest images are said to have come from our satellite reconnaissance satellites, the NRO, National Reconnaissance Office. They apparently have some amazing video, and it's very crisp, and it's very clear. And by showing those pictures, you reveal to the rest of the world how good your reconnaissance ability really is. And that's a problem. You don't want them to know just how good it is, and those images and the capabilities of those satellites are among our top secrets in the country. So, yeah, you have to be able to release them, but if you release them, you're giving your enemy a great deal of information about what you can do from an intelligence gathering standpoint, and we don't want to do that. So I don't think we're going to get to see all of it for sure.
But what more information can we give out than Mr. Trump saying, President Trump saying that we can see their badge number from space?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's true. I don't know.
You know, I don't know how much a crystal clear photo of a UFO would threaten national security or military secrets more than a Truth Social post where the president says exactly what we know that they're capable of. And we all know that they're capable of it. We know that Russia's capable of this. We know that China's capable of this, and probably every other country in the world. So I don't see that as enough cover for why we haven't gotten anything outside of a grainy photo that looks like it was taken on a Razor phone from the early 2000s.
One piece of video is said to exist. I mean, Tim Burchett. Now, I don't know how you feel about Tim Burchett, but I think he's a straight shooter.
I like Tim a lot.
Yeah. He has said that he has seen something that is jaw-dropping. It eliminates any doubt. And what I hear through the grapevine and what I read is there is a video. And the video is supposed to be of taken 4K video, crystal clear. It wasn't taken from a satellite. It wasn't taken from a top secret reconnaissance platform. It was taken by somebody with a camera, 4K. They're in a B-52. They're flying along. They get paced by a saucer. And the pictures are said to be so clear that you can see the pilot of the saucer. And they say when you see that, it's the holy crap moment where you go, well, there it is. You know, what else? I find it interesting that Neil deGrasse Tyson, the astrophysicist, has been somebody who's been sort of he's not been real convinced, but he's now becoming more and more convinced that there's something out there. And he says, you know, where are the aliens? Where are the aliens?
So I'm fine. If that's where we are, all I'm going to ask is, where's the alien? Just bring out the alien. Then we would all transition from asking one another, do you believe in aliens, to, well, yeah, of course, the alien's there.
What do you think? Are they here, or have they been among us?
Whatever are the claims, I'm saying, let's assume they're all true. But just start with that assumption. If it's all true, they ought to be able to bring out the alien.
Got it.
And that hasn't happened yet. So I'm just sitting on the couch waiting patiently for that.
We all are.
Yeah. Neil deGrasse Tyson also thinks that men can be women, so his opinion immediately goes into the trash.
There you go. Take it with a grain of salt. All right, tell me what's on your show coming up here in just a few minutes.
Well, we'll talk about the redistricting war. We're also going to talk about what happened in Austin, Texas over the weekend. We'll talk about Donald Trump versus everybody. He's been going at Bill Cassidy very hard. You got to win there. But now he's focused on Thomas Massie and even Lauren Boebert. We'll break that down, and we'll also talk a little bit about DOJ's statements on Russiagate and the 2020 election over the weekend. Todd Blanche making some pretty explosive statements, saying that we could be getting some real information soon, that he has evidence that the 2020 election was rigged.
All right, it's all straight ahead right here on Super Talk, 54 minutes past the hour of 8 o'clock.
Coming up at the top of the hour, is there really an end in sight to the war between Iran and the U.S.? We'll have some discussion on that. Also, Senate Republicans, they're trying to get the funding for the president's new ballroom. Will they be successful? That's all coming up at 9 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.